seat. I'm going to put a bucket wherever it is.
I'm going to sit next in the middle because there's a spare seat there.
I'm all worried about it. I think they must know that leaks on some of the roofs. And somebody drilling in from the top.
I know. She's got nature. Well, she went.
Yes. The problem's happening. You know, hearing aid batteries, it sounds funny, you know, but batteries are important. Can't get them in the outlets. The only place you can get them is at RVI, main entrance, or the Freeman main entrance, or the hearing department. We'll stop giving them out. We've got the service.
Can you send me an email?
Yeah.
That would be really, we'll bring it
No
up in
bother.
the meeting.
Yeah.
So it's better to do it.
Let's just do as much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the Lord Mayor.
Evening, colleagues. Please sit down. Well, when they said there'd been a leak at the council, I must have misunderstood. Right, everybody hear me? I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening to this special meeting of Newcastle City Council and welcome anyone who is watching online. Tonight, at this special meeting of Council, we'll consider a recommendation for freedom of the city, the highest honour we can bestow, proposed by Constitutional Committee. First of all, I will call on Councillor Karen Kilgour to move the motion to confer the freedom of the city on Yolanda Brown, OBE, DL, to be seconded by Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It is my great privilege to nominate Yolanda Brown, OBE, DL, for the freedom of the city of Newcastle upon Tyne. Yolanda is an internationally acclaimed double MOBO award-winning artist and a tireless advocate for music education, recognised in the 2023 New Year's Honours with an OBE for services to music, music education and broadcasting. Beyond her achievements on stage, Yolanda serves as chair of the BPI, the representative voice of the UK's record labels, the organisation behind the Brit Awards and the Mercury Prize, and as Deputy Lieutenant of Greater London. She also has given distinguished service across the sector, including Youth Music, Arts Council England's National Council, PRS Foundation and the London Philharmonic Orchestra's Advisory Board. Yolanda first fell in love with our city back in 2009, when her soon-to-be husband took her to a Newcastle United football match. I mean, Lord Mayor, what's not to love? She was sold on the passion she saw in the city, and the sax soloist playing local hero was the icing on the cake for her. She's long championed our city, from overseas visits on behalf of the British government to helping to secure the prestigious Mercury Prize in Newcastle, the first time it's taken place outside of London. Her contribution to Newcastle has been real, recent and transformative. The Mercury Prize drew global attention and delivered an economic and social impact of almost £1.5 million for the city and wider region. Her dedication to inspiring young people is exemplary. Working with Newcastle firm Generator, she helped create the Mini Mercury Choir, giving 68 children from across the North East a unique platform to learn, perform and be inspired about opportunities in music. During the pandemic, Yolanda demonstrated the kind of practical, inclusive leadership that mirrors our city's values. She rolled out free online music lesson plans with Sony Music and Twinkle, resources used by an estimated 30,000 primary school pupils, and she co-founded the Drake Yolanda Award to support emerging musicians aged 16 to 30. Her actions gave pleasure and hope to so many young people during a difficult time in our very recent history. Yolanda presented, alongside the Royal Northern Symphonia, the BBC's 10 Pieces in concert in March 2025. And this event invites young people to step into a musical time machine at the Glass House, discovering pieces that inspire hope, break boundaries, and make people want to dance. And just last week, Yolanda was announced as a patron for the Newcastle United Foundation. And I know she looks forward to working with the charity to bring profile to their transformational work. Yolanda has a number of exciting projects in the pipeline with our city, which we're all excited to watch this space over. And we're lucky to have such a passionate and highly acclaimed advocate for our great city. Honouring Yolanda Brown today recognises her outstanding service to the arts and young people, celebrates her commitment to Newcastle and the North East, and underscores our ambition as a music city, supporting inclusive growth, inspiring our young people and championing female entrepreneurship. Accordingly, under Section 249 of the Local Government Act 1972, I move that this Council confer upon Yolanda Brown, OBE, DL, the honorary freedom of the City of Newcastle upon Tyne. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It is a real privilege to second the nomination to award the Freedom of the City to Yolanda Brown, OBE, DL. This is an opportunity to recognise someone who has made an extraordinary contribution to music, to young people and to cultural life here in Newcastle and the wider North East. Yolanda is a world-class musician and a national leader in the creative industries. She is a double MOBO award winner, has toured internationally with some of the biggest names in music, and was awarded an OBE for services to music, music education and broadcasting. She now serves as chair of the BPI, helping to shape the future of the UK's music industry. But what makes Yolanda so special is the way she brings that influence and experience to our city and to ordinary people. Her relationship began with Newcastle in 2009, when she visited for a Newcastle United match and experienced the passion of the city firsthand. Since then, she has become one of our strongest advocates, promoting Newcastle on a national and international stage and building connections that have delivered real opportunities for the region. She's a passionate fan of Newcastle United and was recently confirmed as a patron of the Newcastle United Foundation, working to provide life-changing opportunities for young people and communities across Newcastle. She played a key role in bringing the Mercury Prize to Newcastle in 2024, the first time the event has been held outside of London, and that achievement has placed our city firmly on the global cultural map and delivered significant economic and social benefits. Just as importantly, she ensured that the impact reached young people. Through the Mercury Newcastle Fringe and the Mini Mercury Choir, children from across the city and region were given the chance to learn, perform and discover their potential through music. Her commitment to music education is long-standing and deeply felt. As the leader has said, during the pandemic, she helped deliver online music resources used by tens of thousands of children. More recently, she co-presented BBC 10 Pieces in concert with the Royal Northern Sinfonia, giving young people in our region another inspiring cultural experience. Yolanda Brown has made a real and lasting contribution to this city. Through her leadership in music, her commitment to young people and her work to bring national and international attention to Newcastle, she has helped open doors and create opportunities that will be felt for years to come. This nomination recognises that contribution, and it also marks a historic step, as Yolanda would be the first black woman to receive the Freedom of the City. That matters not as a symbol, but because it reflects the values of a modern, confident and outward-looking Newcastle. This is the right honour for the right reasons at the right time, and I'm pleased to second this nomination, and I urge members to support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hay. Does Council agree to confer the Freedom of the City on Yolanda Brown? Thank you very much. May I be the first to congratulate Ms Brown on her award. I understand an event will be arranged at a future date to present her with her frame certificate and for her to sign the official roll of honorary freeman. As is tradition, her name will also be engraved into the banqueting hall wall. We now move on to the main meeting of City Council. Before I formally start the business meeting of City Council, could I remind members to use the microphones when speaking this evening and to ensure that everyone in the room and watching online is able to hear everything. One further note, as there is a statutory named vote item on the agenda, can you make sure that you are logged in to go vote and let ICT colleagues at the back of the chamber know if you have any problems. Right, item number 1, apologies. Craig?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. We have apologies from Councillors Iram Ali, Nabila Ali, Burns, Campion, Lowson, Musharraf, Karen Robinson, David Wood, Margaret Wood, Stevie Wood, Joanne.
Okay. Any others? No, thank you. Item 2, the minutes. I gather there was an issue with the minutes, but does Council agree the minutes of the meeting held on the 3rd of December 2025, subject to the corrections published in the supplementary agenda pack? Agreed? Thank you very much. Yes, Councillor Ferguson.
It would just be helpful to clarify. I didn't realise in the size of the items that have been circulated at the meeting, there was a specific question around the recording of named votes. And I just wanted to clarify that that is explicitly included in the minutes. There was also a typo on page 28, and that's been picked up as well.
Yes?
Yes. Excellent. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Right. Official announcements. I'm sure members are aware of the sad news of the death of former councillor and alderman Jerry Keaton on December the 30th, aged 78. As a city councillor with the Liberal Democrats, he represented communities in Blakelaw and North Jesmond for almost 33 years before standing down on health grounds in July 2024. Jerry was first elected to the City Council in May 1986, although he was elected to Tyne-and-Wear County Council before that in 1981, I believe. And he served Blakelaw Ward until 2012. He was then elected to North Jesmond in August 2014. He lost his seat in 2015 and was elected again to North Jesmond in May 2018. He was on the council for a total of 32 years and 10 months and became an alderman in November 2012. I'm sure I'll see many of you at the funeral service at 11:15 on Friday the 30th of January at the crematorium. Our thoughts go out to Jerry's family, his wife Lucy, who I've been in correspondence with and passed on council's condolences. And I would like to ask that we all stand, if you are able, for a minute's silence to remember our friend Jerry. Thank you, colleagues. On behalf of Council, I'd like to congratulate all those with a connection to the North East who were recognised in the New Year's Honours List, in particular our Director of Public Health, Professor Alice Wiseman, on her MBE, and who's with us this evening to present the Public Health Report a little bit later. As tonight's City Council meeting will determine the Council tax base, I'd like to remind members that the guillotine will fall at 9 p.m. rather than 8:30 p.m. 4. Correspondence. Does Council agree to receive the correspondence from the Department for Business and Trade, the Home Office, the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, and in the supplemental agenda pack, the Office for Product Safety and Standards? Agreed. Thank you. Petitions. No petitions have been submitted this month. Public questions. We've had one request to address Council. Can I invite Mr. Owen Burbidge to address the Council? Mr. Burbidge.
Thank you, Mr. Lord Mayor and Council, for giving me this opportunity to ask a pertinent question regarding our parks and play areas. So, as a resident in West Fenham and Slatyford, I am concerned about the lack of safe and accessible play facilities for our local children. For example, the play area at King George's Field is currently in a poor state of repair, and the play area in Slatyford Dean was destroyed by vandals in 2025 and has not been repaired since. For many parents, grandparents and carers in Fenham and Slatyford, particularly those without access to a car, these local play areas are the only safe places to take our children to play. The ongoing deterioration and neglect for these facilities is having a significant negative impact on families in my neighbourhood. I also note that residents are concerned about a lack of a bin by the gate on the Hesley-side Drive entrance to King George's Field, which is contributing to littering in the local area. Please, therefore, can Cabinet members comment on what action is being taken to improve the condition of the play area on King George's Field and to restore the play area at Slatyford Dean. In addition, Please can the Cabinet members give their view on whether the existing budget for ongoing play area repairs and maintenance is sufficient to ensure all play areas across Newcastle, not just in my area, are kept in a safe and well-maintained condition for our children to enjoy?
Thank you, Mr Burbidge. Councillor here to respond.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Mr Burbidge, for raising your concerns about play areas at King George's Field and Slatyford Dean. Our play inspection team visited King George's Field this week and have confirmed that all equipment is safe and in a serviceable condition, and that the site is currently well maintained. The play area benefited from over £60,000 of investment during the 2022-23 improvement programme, and it continues to be monitored through our routine inspection regime. In response to your request for a litter bin at the Helsley Drive entrance, I have referred this to our local services team, who will assess whether the location meets the criteria for installation and will reach out to you separately. At Slatyford Dean, I'm pleased to confirm that £40,000 has recently been secured through the Community Infrastructure Levy to replace the damaged climbing frame. The new equipment has now been ordered and is expected to be installed in March, alongside repairs to the rubber safety surfacing. With regard to your question about the adequacy of the play maintenance budget, all of the Council's budgets remain under significant pressure, and we continue to work hard to make the best use of resources available. The Council is responsible for more than 100 play sites across the city, each with fixed equipment, safety surfacing, fencing, signage and associated infrastructure. These sites are supported by robust inspection in line with ROSPA and industry standards, including weekly and monthly checks, as well as an annual independent audit. While the current maintenance budget allows us to keep play areas safe and operational, it does not fully meet the long-term renewed needs of the entire play estate. Additional capital investment is therefore essential to maintain quality and resilience over time. A recent example of this commitment is the approval of a £1.5 million investment for play spaces, which was announced and approved by Cabinet in September 2025. This will deliver 4 fully accessible play spaces across the city and improve a further 7 at locations across Newcastle. I hope this answer provides reassurance, and I'll be happy to meet with you or residents in the future about your concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hay. If you wish to, Mr Burbidge, you can have up to a minute to respond.
Yeah, thank you very much for, as a minimum, I guess, confirming the play area at Slatyford Dean will be reinstated. And I look forward to speaking with you in due course about the bin on Headleyside Drive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr Burbidge. We now move on to item number 7, Director of Public Health Annual Report 25-26. I will now invite Alice Wiseman, MBE, Director of Public Health, to present her annual report. Please note that a slightly amended version of the report is included in the items circulated at meeting pack. Members can ask questions following the end of the presentation, and may I ask that all replies be given together at the end. Okay, so Alice.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's a great privilege to be here presenting my second annual report as the Director of Public Health for this amazing city. The focus of my report this year is something that I know many of you feel passionately about: food security. I'll start with a question. Before you arrived here tonight, how many of you were asked, or did you ask, what's for tea? It's a question I heard daily as I was growing up, and then again when raising my own children. I always had an answer. It never crossed my mind that I couldn't answer that question. But sadly, it is not the same for everybody in our city. In 2024, almost 1 in 4 households across the North East experience food insecurity. Food insecurity isn't just about hunger. In the UK, healthy food is twice as expensive as unhealthy food, and what we eat affects our physical, oral, and mental health. Many people also suffer and experience significant shame, stigma, and all of those create barriers to seeking help. This can lead to anxiety, depression, cognitive decline, and social isolation, all completely preventable. As Sir Michael Marmot said, why treat people and send them back to the conditions that made them sick? Food insecurity sits on a spectrum from those who are food secure through mild and moderate to severe insecurity. Mild insecurity may involve strict budgeting or skipping meals, causing stress, embarrassment, and guilt. Moderate insecurity forces people to compromise on food quality. With healthy food costing more than unhealthy food, many have to rely on ultra-processed food, leading to higher rates of obesity, reduced immunity, poor sleep, issues with child development, and again, stigma. Severe insecurity can cause social withdrawal, physical changes in appearance, chronic stress, malnutrition, and further mental health challenges, amongst other poor outcomes. For example, drinking and eating sugary foods can cause tooth decay and gum disease, which can cause pain, tooth loss, problems with our heart, and diabetes. Between 2021 and 2024, 370 children under 5 were admitted to hospital for tooth decay, and a quarter of 5-year-olds had visible signs of dental decay. I've also already highlighted how our weight can be affected by food security, with healthy food being more expensive. And stigma is also closely associated with being overweight, with many people assuming it's purely an individual choice. In reality, powerful commercial drivers and poverty are far more influential. It is not possible that a whole generation of people have lost willpower all at the same time. The relationship between food and mental well-being is equally complex. Limited access to food can cause loneliness, shame, nutrient deficiencies that affect learning, reasoning, emotional regulation, and overall mental well-being. Stigma also harms communities by causing social barriers that lead again to isolation, late or crisis intervention, poor health outcomes, and growing inequality. One of our residents described the shame she felt when she first contacted a food bank after losing her job. She parked around the corner, avoided eye contact, and worried that people would judge her. Over the following weeks and months, spending time at the hub helped her meet other people in similar situations. She later began volunteering, helping others as she had been helped. And she told us, they didn't just give me food, they gave me respect. Her story demonstrates how supportive, non-judgmental spaces can rebuild confidence and restore dignity. I spoke last year about the commercial determinants of health. There are a handful of industries that use specific tactics to increase their profits, which ultimately undermines the health of our population. This includes the way our food is produced, ultra-processed food, focuses on quantity, longevity, and price rather than nutrition. Aggressive targeting and marketing, which distorts our social and cultural norms. Industry-funded research, which aims to cast doubt over scientific evidence. And lobbying and party political donations to influence national policy. However, while there are lots of challenges, as you know and would expect, our city is not taking this lying down. There is lots that we are already doing. Newcastle Food Bank is commissioned by Public Health to host Food Newcastle, which aims to connect our VCSE, public services, the local food economy and communities in order to build equitable, sustainable and delicious food culture. We also have a food system strategic group leading our citywide action and a food security working group which is coordinating efforts across our council. We have a food in school groups which is focusing on the quality of meals as well as free school meal take-up. And we also have the holiday activities programme which offers food and enriching activities during the school holidays. We've also already signed the Healthy Weight Declaration, which commits us to system-level change focusing on the food environment and commercial influences. Nationally, Newcastle is seen as a leader in this space. In addition to the strategic work, there are many spaces that operate across the city to support people with food security. There are lots of examples included in my report, but I'll highlight just a few. The West End Women and Girls Food Justice Programme provides weekly sessions where women and girls from different cultures grow, harvest and cook together using food as a shared language to build friendships. The Men's Pie Club that started in Byker in 2017 now has a further 5 clubs operating across the city and actually 34 across the North East. Their aim is to get local men together in a relaxed, supportive space where they can connect over good food and company. Our family hubs also provide a crucial role in offering holistic support and pathways into our food security infrastructure. And within the Newcastle Food Bank, we also have a Pathways Out of Hunger welfare service, which offers support with income maximisation, debt, housing advice, and links to employability pathways, aiming to put money back into people's pockets in a really sustainable way. Food is also important for climate resilience and health equity. The food system, how it's grown, how it gets to us, how far it travels, and how much food we waste, all impacts on the sustainability of our planet. Sustainability and health outcomes are improved by reducing food waste and promoting seasonal and local eating and growing. Fuel poverty and food insecurity often coexist, driven by low income, poor quality housing and rising fuel costs. In 2023, 14,000 households experienced fuel poverty, limiting access to heating and lighting, as well as cooking and other appliances. But again, there is lots that we are already doing. The energy team help people by focusing on affordability of energy, housing efficiencies and income maximisation. Our school meals service was awarded the Pro Veg Bronze Award in both 24 and 25, and this was achieved by introducing a meat-free day each week alongside better descriptions of plant-based foods and seasonal changes to menus. There are also many VCSE organisations, communities and individuals that are growing food across the city, enabling residents to gain new skills and build confidence. In recognition of the key role our VCSE partners play, we have funded the weekly distribution of 120 kilograms of good-to-eat food through our Fair Share programme. In the first 6 months, more than 130 tonnes of food was put on plates rather than being thrown out. And finally, food waste collections were trialled in over 5,000 households from last September, with the collected waste being used to create new bioenergy, also helping the city to become less reliant on gas and electricity. I hope you can see that while we have many challenges in our city, our response across all the directorates in the council, alongside our various partners working in the city, are tackling this issue head-on. So to finish, the recommendations from my report aim to build on the amazing foundation that we already have. And I'm asking that we collectively recognise food as a priority, and particularly as we take forward the work on the Marmot City, that we listen to those people who've experienced food insecurity, so our response is based on dignity and enabling people to have a sense of control, that we build existing work to ensure provision is culturally sensitive and sustainable, that we also build the knowledge and understanding of the link between food insecurity, fuel poverty and excess weight. We need to continue building capacity for early intervention and prevention. We also want to improve data monitoring and also alignment with the indicators across population health, poverty, housing, economy, sustainability and planning. And finally, we want to develop our local evidence base to assess the impact of the existing approaches that we are taking to support programmes and guide that universal and targeted intervention, alongside an opportunity to influence national efforts to really restore health equity into our food system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alice. Are you happy to answer all the questions
Yes.
at the end after they've all been asked? Right, great. We can have up to 6 questions, and there are more than 6 people who want to ask questions. Anyway, we'll press on with the 6. Councillor Cairns with the first one, please. And can I ask Councillor Stone to stand ready?
Thanks very much. Really enjoyed reading the report and thought it was excellent and also very well referenced. I like a good reference. I thought the roadmap of the life course was very useful. I thought it was an excellent infographic of showing how the life course was impacting on people in...
It is supposed to be a question, Councillor Keynes.
Yeah, I know. What I wanted to raise was in my in volunteering in food banks, one of the things I came across was older women let down by both benefits and pensions, having been carers, now perhaps suffering from a lack of food. I'd just like to know, I know there's lots of stuff in the report, but I would just like to hear a bit more about the concrete actions locally around improving the food that's accessible through things like food banks, but also the food in schools. I'd like to hear a bit more about that. And the community cafes, how they're dealing not only with food, but with the loneliness and social isolation. I just wanted to commend the report, and I hope everybody's read it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Keynes. Can Councillor Peters please stand ready? Councillor Stone.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Alice, for the report. I hope it's okay to ask a question which is not directly related to the food topic, but I think it's still an issue of importance. And I acknowledge that the situation was not one of your instigation, but you've had to deal with the consequences of it. I'm referring to the situation with regard to the sexual health services in Newcastle, which I think caused concern to a lot of councillors and to people in the city. And I think there was an issue there for the public health service that we offer in the city is a very important fundamental service. So with apologies for raising that, because I know you were not responsible for procurement of that, and you've taken admirable steps to deal with the situation. Can I seek some assurances that we will not find ourselves in that kind of situation again on that and potentially other services in terms of procurement? Because I think a lot of people were puzzled by when we got into that situation in the first place, and it led to a disappointing outcome in the long run. So
thank you very much, Councillor Stone. Can Councillor Walker stand ready? Councillor Peters, please.
Thank you so much for the report. Obviously, over the last decade, we've seen how geopolitical, pandemic and extreme weather events exacerbate existing food insecurities. How can we ensure that Newcastle is as best prepared as possible for future such events, including by reducing our dependence on mass imported food? Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Walker, I gather, isn't in the room. So in that case, can we move on to Councillor Taylor, please? And can Councillor Greenhoff stand ready?
Thank you, Alice, for a very good report again. Very interesting. And congratulations on your MB. It's really well deserved. My question again is slightly off the topic of the report, but what I wanted to ask is damp and mould being considered from a public health point of view, and what more can be done to deal with it?
Thank you. Can Councillor Byrne please stand ready? Councillor Greenhoff.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I was really pleased in the reference in the report to nourish food. I know that's something that we've funded locally in Denton and Westhope. Both myself and Councillors Mitchells have both funded that, and we've all been along to see the fantastic work that they've done. So I was really pleased that the case study was referenced in the report. What I found locally in particular is the local community-based food banks seem to have a lot people trust their local volunteers a lot more maybe than some of the bigger local charities, and feel they've got that connection because they might know them from their local area, from their local church, from their local community group. So it's just how we've referenced a lot of the larger organisations, but how do we support those smaller organisations, Chapel and Denton Westhope Food Bank, for example, who are very much rooted in local community but depend very much on local donations and local support and aren't part of the sort of wider national chains chains isn't the right word, apologies, but the national sort of food banks that have wider resources compared to the smaller, really locally based ones where little bits of funding can make a huge difference to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Finally, Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. We know that food insecurity can be greatly reduced by increasing incomes. We also know that benefit take-up in Newcastle is nothing like at the level that we would like it to be. You mentioned a couple of very effective projects in your report, and I was just interested to know how much more scope you think there is to increase benefit take-up in Newcastle, and to what extent you think the public health team can and will be addressing that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, Alice, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for all of those questions. So I think if I go back to the first question around older women, we know that women are much more likely to live in persistent poverty than men are. And we know that that is partly because, as you said, women are much more likely to be in caring roles, both with children and then later on in life with wider family and also grandchildren, as we know. So I think that what we've tried to do to tackle this is exactly leading to the point around what we're doing in local areas is how do we invest in those community organisations that are already rooted in local communities. And we've done that in a number of ways. So not specifically focusing on the issue of older women, but actually making sure that we're reaching out to those trusted partners that are working there. And we funded, like I say, we funded the Fair Share programme so that they're providing provision across 45 of our community voluntary sector partners that are working in our communities at 120 kilograms of food every single week that's going onto people's plates instead of into the bin. We're also put some funding in from public health around wellbeing hubs. So again, recognising that there are community spaces and places that people already go to trust. And I think when you hear and read the report, you'll see actually the spaces that are providing food provide so much more than food and actually do also often provide welfare advice, thinking about more sustainable ways of putting money back into people's pockets. So I think what we've tried to do and what we'll continue to try to do, working through our food system group, which, like I say, we've commissioned from the food bank in Newcastle, is to think about how we invest in those infrastructure organisations that are working at a community level, supporting local people, rather than trying to add something extra onto it. So that's definitely the focus, and how we can use some of our limited resources to be able to make sure that we're providing access to some of the things that the smaller organisations may not be able to afford, such as the subscription to Fair Share on an annual basis. In relation to sexual health services, so we were at Scrutiny Committee last week, and I'm really happy to come and talk to you a bit more about that work. We have awarded the contract this week to South Tyneside and Sunderland FT, so we're really delighted about that. South Tyneside and Sunderland FT already provide sexual health services across Gateshead, South Tyneside and Sunderland. They're a real expert in sexual health, so I'm really confident that the service that we'll have moving forwards will be a really positive service. I have the opportunity of commissioning them also in Gateshead, so I've worked with them for a number of years. I think in relation, when we look back, is that the procurement rules have changed. You know, so when I wasn't here when it happened, so what I've been able to do is objectively look back at the process that we undertook. And actually the process was a really transparent legal process that, you know, was an open tender. You know, unfortunately there was only one application that was submitted. I've looked at the evaluation criteria and reviewed that, and it was all absolutely followed in line. You know, so in many ways at that point, from a legal perspective, we were unable to avoid the situation that we got into. What we have done, obviously, as you know, is monitored the service very closely and withdrawn the contract at the point where we thought we could go no further with the existing provider. So I am really positive that we'll look forward, and we now have a different way of commissioning health services called provider selection regime, which means that we may not get into that position in the future because we don't always have to go out for competitive tender as long as we're happy with the service. So there's probably a lot more in there, and I'm happy to come and meet with you and chat to you about that. In relation to the sustainability and the climate change, you know, that's absolutely something we need to do, not only for the planet, but also for the health and for health equity. We know that people in more disadvantaged communities are more likely to suffer from the impacts of climate change. We're working really closely with the sustainability and climate team to think about actually undertaking a needs assessment for Newcastle, and we'll bring that forward for councillors over the next sort of few weeks and months, if you like, to look at actually the actions that we're undertaking as a city and whether there's more we can do. So I think that's one for us to watch this year, and something that I'd be keen to come and talk to members about in the coming months. Damp and mould is very much a public health concern. And actually often, you know, we know that in Newcastle we have lots of private rented sector housing. You know, often it isn't necessarily of the quality that we would like it to be. I'm sure that, again, Vicky will come and talk to you more about the work that she's doing from a housing perspective. What we've been looking at doing is trying to support those people who are living in fuel poverty through a pathway that we've developed with Newcastle hospitals. So what we've done is we've supported almost 300 people who've accessed Newcastle hospitals for very specific conditions, to have energy support and energy advice, which has meant that we've been able to put money back into local people's pockets again so that they can continue to heat their homes, because often there's a challenge between heating and being able to ventilate your home at the same time. So lots more to do, and there's lots more going on, but certainly that's what we've been looking at. Somebody asked me to talk about schools, and there's loads of brilliant work that's going on in schools as well. I've talked about the quality of the school meals. Auto-enrolment work has been amazing. So there was over 150 young people who were auto-enrolled in the last school year, which meant not only did those young people get access to the free school meals and the nutrition that comes with that, but it also put nearly 200,000 back into school pockets as well. We've continued to do that work, so there was another look at it again in the summer, which added a further 91 young people, and now the team are running a weekly catch-up, so that if family circumstances change, they're not missing out in the few weeks that between the family circumstances changing and the award of free school meals. And since the start of the academic year, a further 77 children have been added into that. So there's loads going on, both in terms of the quality of the food, like I say, the award in terms of the meat-free days, but also thinking about how we ensure that those young people who are eligible for free school meals are able to be automatically enrolled and therefore able to access them. And I think I talked a bit earlier on about the local communities and the work we're doing into local communities. Again, very happy to meet with you and talk to you more about some of the work we're doing there. It is cross-council again. So definitely looking at how do we sort of maximise the work that we're doing as a whole council as opposed to individual directorates. Thank you.
Is that it?
I think so.
Great, lovely. Well, once again, congratulations, Alice, on your MBA. I'm sure council would like to thank Alice in the traditional way. Item number 8, Audit and Standards Committee Annual Report 24-25. First of all, does Council agree that Mr Les Watson, Independent Chair of the Audit and Standards Committee, can speak under Standing Order 29 to present the report which sets out the panel's recommendations? Lovely, thank you very much. In that case, I now invite Mr Watson to introduce the report. Then I'll be calling on Councillor McCartney to move the covering report, seconded by Councillor Stevenson. Mr Watson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I've just realised I started walking down before you approved that I could appear. But, apologies for that. I'm going to be fairly brief because the report's in there. But I think there are one or two things I just need to highlight as part of my presentation to the annual report. First of all, in terms of audit and the accounts for the council, there will be a meeting on February the 10th where we will be recommending approval of the accounts for 24-25. But unfortunately, and maybe not to be unexpected, that this will be another set of disclaimed accounts. But I need to say immediately after that the disclaimed accounts are not as a result of any problems or issues as far as the council's accounts are concerned. They're always well presented, presented accurately, presented on time. And, I'm going to repeat some of the stuff I said last year, really. We're still in the middle of this national backlog in terms of public sector audit. Some of the issues are fairly technical. Audit of local government has become much more complicated, much more detail involved. And, for example, property valuations, if you've got a difference between the way the council and the external auditor kind of view these, that takes time, more delays, and hence the disclaimed opinion that we will be approving on February the 10th. All I would say to the council is that the committee, we've been asking questions all year about this, and as soon as this set of accounts are agreed, we will be engaging and challenging the external auditor about how we can get back to the position we should be in, whereby we're getting a clean set of accounts approved on time. In terms of the standards work that's been done by the committee, we're very clear about what our role is here. I need to say that at the outset, and there have been no breaches of the code, so the committee haven't dealt with any of that. But I think there are three things I just want to mention, again, fairly briefly. And I do this in the sense of lessons learned over the past year. And the first is, I think the committee have had some discussion, and we realise that we do need to do some work and have a better understanding of Article 10 of the European Commission on Human Rights, the Charter of Human Rights, sorry. That's the one that Article 10 deals with freedom of expression, and it's quite timely, I think, for the committee to have a better understanding of that and how that might impact on codes of conduct, etc. And hopefully, once we've done our training, there will be an update presented to councillors and officers about Article 10 and how that may or not impact on their work. The other two things, really, I want to mention are under the headings that I see them as timeliness and value for money. It's been very clear whether there's an internal or external investigation needed. If this takes too long, it has an adverse effect on those involved, anybody making a complaint, being subject of a complaint, or involved in the investigation. So I think the committee does have a role in kind of just questioning or making sure that the timeliness of any investigation work doesn't just drag on, as I've said, to the detriment of anybody involved. And the other issue, again, which doesn't encroach on other responsibilities, we're very much aware of what ours are, the whole question of value for money. If there was an external investigation that just kind of is open-ended, can lead to expensive use of public monies. So again, we feel as if the committee's got a role to ask questions and to kind of not to be involved in that. That's clearly the remit of the monitoring officer and the independent persons. But we do have a role in kind of just asking questions and challenging on that. So they're really the main areas. I think I just want to take this opportunity to thank committee members, past and present. Our meetings are full of thoughtful, constructive challenge on a whole range of issues. And I think, we've covered fraud, we've covered Section 106, our deep dives into housing, community cohesion, and we're doing a lot of work on SEND, and we'll continue. Special education needs funding is a big issue for councils across the country. So we've done quite some useful work in terms of challenge on those and a number of other areas, and the committee members have played a very fundamental part for that. And also really just to thank the officers, the kind of quality of the reports, their openness and honesty makes it easier for the committee to carry out their duties and provide that challenge and rigour that is the role of the Audit and Standards Committee. So that's all I've got to say really, Lord Mayor. If there are any questions, I'll try and answer them. If not, I can always get back to people as soon as possible. Thank you.
It's okay, Les. I'm not going to ask them to ask you questions, don't worry.
Good.
Councillor McCartney, are you going to move the report?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you to Les for running us through the most crucial areas of the report that is in front of us tonight. I think many colleagues across the council chamber will share your concerns about that final opinion on the disclaimed audit report, which is not satisfactory. And in particular, Lord Mayor, I want to thank the Chair for his work to continue to raise awareness with government about this issue. It isn't a Newcastle issue, it's across the country. Then the sooner we can get caught up to make it right, the better. Lord Mayor, a couple of things that I think we need to think about in the future. I do think, and this is mentioned in the report, we need to make sure that scrutiny and audit and standards aren't duplicating work. We need to just clarify who's taking responsibility for which. The SEND report that Les has just mentioned, Lord Mayor, will also be picked up by children and young people. So we just need to be really careful about the extra workload that brings on officers. We are trying to do our best to make sure that we're not duplicating that work, but I think we need to just constantly be aware of what is in front of us and what's planned over the next few months. Lord Mayor, the strategic risk register is stronger, I think partly thanks to the work of Audit and Standards. And as Les has said, we've devoted a fair amount of time to the issues of standards over the last year and identified areas for training, which of course we need to be aware of in relation to standards constantly. I do want to welcome the government's approach to standards. I think they are going to increase the sanctions available to standards committees across the country, and I think that is really important. And my last comment, Lord Mayor, is about the dual role of the committee, which is constantly challenging, I think, about putting audit and standards together. We are making it work. It is effective, but I know that that debate will continue. Thank you, Lord Mayor. I move the report.
Thank you very much. Councillor Stevenson to second.
The light mustn't be waiting. Thank you, Lord Mayor. I am very happy to second this report of the Audit and Standards Committee, which clearly shows the amount of work and in-depth deep dives we have carried out, the officers have carried out, and we have discussed in this past year, providing a critical friend and challenge when necessary. We have had a number of investigations and hearings so far and continue to learn from these. Councillors on the committee and independent members have worked cross-party in the councillors' sense to work towards the outcomes of these in a mutual way for the good of the authority. As councillors, we are all expected to uphold high standards at every level, regardless of any political persuasion. And we look forward to considering the government's look at monitoring the strengthening of standards in local authorities in England. I think that will be helpful for everyone, and maybe we can see clearly what's happening in relation to, as you say, with the training, Article 10. It's a learning curve for us all, and we are all incumbent on following the standards that are expected of us by our electorate. And I am delighted to second this report to Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stevenson. A few members have asked to speak. Could I call on Councillor Mark Mitchell, and can Councillor Herridge please stand ready?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like, first of all, to add my thanks to the committee chair, and in particular to the independent members of the committee who bring a great deal of value to the work the committee does. I'd also like to thank the other committee members from across the chamber. My experience on the committee for the last year has been that we have worked well together, and whatever our political differences, we have come together to look at issues of great importance to the council. That said, and Joyce did refer to this, at the beginning of the year, it looked as if it was all about audit, and we spent a lot of time on audit matters, not because of what the committee wanted, but because of events outside our control. We then ended up spending a lot of time on standards. And I do think it demonstrates that there is some need to look again at whether audit and standards should be in the same committee, because standards is one of these areas where, I'm dealing with it at NECA as well, there's nothing to do for 95% of the time, but when something comes up, it tends to be a significant issue that needs a lot of work. So I think the next council from May does need to consider whether it is appropriate for that to be a single committee or to split it again. I think the other thing I just wanted to make a brief comment on, and again Joyce has mentioned this, we've talked a lot about standards and the chair has referred to Article 10. But I am not criticising anybody in this chamber for a moment, but I think, frankly, in this day and age, with discussions about Article 10, I hope that everybody in this chamber would say we are not just looking at what the legal standards are. We might have disputes in council, we might get a little bad-tempered on occasion. But I think we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard than the minimum legal. And I think it is all about courtesy, being polite, having political disagreements without being personal. And I think if we can all commit to that and continue to treat each other with respect, whatever our views, then we will continue to have a chamber and a council that functions for the good of the people of Newcastle. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can Councillor Stone please stand ready? Councillor Herridge.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Having spent a short time away from the Audit and Standards Committee, I was glad to read this report to see the important work has been continuing, especially around the continued questioning of the external auditors to try and get them to get the financial proverbial wiggle on and try to get caught up with the accounts. It's also good to hear that standards is continuing to be given as important a role as the audit is. It's good to hear that councillors have been behaving themselves and that there have been no breaches. But as Councillor Mark Mitchell just said, and I would agree with him, I think it is very important that we have this cross-party respect in this chamber. And I feel like it's good that standards has been seen as just as important, because if the polls are to be believed, there is a good chance that standards may be called on more often following the elections in May. That's just my opinion. So yes, it's very good to see that the work's been going on, and I'm looking forward to joining back in with the work.
Thank you very much. Councillor Stone.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you to the Chair. I echo the comments of my colleague Councillor Mitchell and the previous speakers in commending the contribution of the independent members of the Audit and Standards Committee, who do very important work and bring admirable integrity and insight into the committee's proceedings. I'd also like to commend my councillor colleagues on the committee for their concern and commitment to the good governance and the ethical standards of the council. Audit and Standards is often an unheralded committee, but its effectiveness is crucial to the integrity of the council and its governance. At the risk of mixing my metaphors, it's both a watchdog and a canary in the coal mine. I have been struck by the determination of committee members over the last year to challenge and obtain, where necessary, appropriate assurances, and that has been especially necessary over the last year. Members of the committee are conscious of the following ongoing concerns. Firstly, the ongoing situation with external audit has been referred to. We are conscious we are in an unwelcome situation where we cannot secure an unqualified external audit opinion due to the difficulties in previous annual audit cycles, which are not of the committee or the council's responsibility. Secondly, there is, at least in my view, a need for the committee to continue to make sure there is sufficient resource in respect of internal audit, which is within the responsibility of the committee and the council. And thirdly, and significantly in my view, there is going to be a need for the committee to pay, and with scrutiny, we can divide this with scrutiny as appropriate, to pay heed to and seek a suitable assurances on the council's budget and customer service transformation. I've previously raised the issue of the council's transformation plan both here and at committee. Now, the council's budget proposals are a matter for the next meeting, but it's already apparent the proposals will rely on some very significant savings proposals through transformation. I'm giving council some advance warning that audit standards will need to look closely at how this will be delivered and how the arising corporate risks will be mitigated. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor McCarthy, you have the right to reply, should you wish to do so? No? Okay, thank you very much for that. Does council agree to receive the report? Yep. Okay, thank you very much, Les. Thank you. Cheers. Item number 9, council tax base and business rates base. This item will require a statutory name vote at the end of it. Can I call on Councillor Kilgour to move the report, to be seconded by Councillor Hay?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm pleased to present this year's Council Tax Base report, which provides an overview of the tax base setting process and the key factors that shape our final calculation. This has always been a technical and straightforward item on the agenda, but I see that the Liberal Democrats have decided to spice things up a bit with an amendment, but I'll get to that in a moment. This is a factual report. The calculation takes into account several important elements: the number of properties across all council tax bands A to H, expected new properties and demolitions, exemptions and discounts, and the equivalent number of whole properties eligible for council tax support. These are then converted into Band D equivalents using nationally prescribed ratio. And we've seen continued growth in the tax base, driven by an increase in the number of properties on the valuation list alongside adjustments for exemptions, discounts and council tax support, contributing positively to our overall Band D equivalent figure, which currently stands at 74,215. The report also includes 3 recommended changes to our council tax support scheme for 2026 to 27, and I'd like to place on record my thanks to Paul Frew, whose hard work alongside council officers got us to this point. Our scheme is already focused on those in the lowest income brackets, with 100% support available for the most vulnerable or those on specific benefits. However, following motions to this council and after consultation, we're proposing to expand that support. Namely, we will provide full council tax support to care leavers up to the age of 25. In support of the Marie Curie campaign, we will give 100% council tax support to prevent people who are terminally ill dying in poverty. And having backed the Royal British Legion campaign, we propose to disregard any payments from the Armed Forces Compensation Scheme as either income or capital when calculating any entitlement to council tax support. A period of public consultation was carried out regarding these proposals, and I'm pleased to say was supported positively by the majority of responders. Which brings me on to the amendment. Group leaders received this amendment last night, leaving no opportunity to properly prepare, discuss it with groups, or understand the thinking behind it, particularly as it's never been raised with us before. Councillors Mitchell and Ferguson may have discussed this with other opposition members, but I suspect they didn't speak to council officers and they certainly didn't speak to us, which is a shame, because had they done so, they would have been advised that the changes they're proposing for the next financial year are not lawful, as they did not form part of the statutory consultation process. Any proposals for subsequent financial years must also follow that same statutory process. They're not matters that can simply be agreed in this chamber tonight. And on the face of it, the Liberal Democrat amendment may sound reasonable. However, it's entirely uncosted, unfunded. There's no modelling being undertaken to assess its potential impact. In fact, the financial implications are impossible to quantify with any confidence because we don't actually know how many people might become eligible for support, specifically those with savings between £6,000 and the proposed new threshold. Nor do we know what level of support they might receive, which would vary depending on income and household circumstances. Had the proposers engaged with officers, they would have also been informed that consultation with an industry expert was undertaken only last year, and that expert advised that more than 100 council tax support schemes across the country set their savings limit at £6,000. So in that context, we're not outliers, although we will, of course, continue to keep the scheme under review. So, colleagues, we've got a clear choice tonight. Opposition members can choose to support an amendment designed to score a political point, I suspect, despite knowing it's unachievable, not statutorily compliant, uncosted, unfunded, and unsupported by any modelling, with no consideration given to potential unintended consequences. Or you can reject the amendment and support the substantive report before us this evening. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kilgar. Councillor Hay to second. Sorry? Okay, thank you very much. I'll now call on Councillor Ferguson to respond to the report and to move the amendment, and he will be seconded by Councillor Mark Mitchell.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. We're here today to consider the fundamental pillars of our city's financial planning for the 2026-27 financial year and beyond, ahead of the budget meeting in March. The calculation of the council tax base is a technical document which on the face of it has little of the political dimension about it, as we note every year. And yet I am afforded as long to respond to this item as I am to the budget papers in March. Now, I haven't ever taken the full 20 minutes to respond on this item, and I don't intend to do so this evening. It will not surprise Council to know that I won't query the technical aspects of this, like the 306 exempt Band E dwellings that are referred to and all of that sort of thing. We absolutely respect, trust and believe that the officers' calculations are robust and accurate. However, the council tax support scheme accompanying it is absolutely within the political dimension, and it is clear from movements across the country that there is a deep political divide in the approach to financial support for some of the most vulnerable and least well off in our communities. But if I look first at the council tax base and business rates, we see a projected tax base of 74,125 Band D equivalents. This represents a 5% increase in the tax base, I believe, which, coupled with proposed rate adjustments would be projected to result in a roughly 10% increase in total income for the council. Yet as we look towards the budget proposals due in March, the narrative of the administration won't seem to recognise that. I expect at the next meeting we will hear the usual canards about £400 million worth of savings and the cuts that have been made to the council since 2010. But would residents understand how that figure sits alongside an increase in income? I acknowledge that local authorities face unique pressures, with cost increases for essential services often outstripping general inflation. I have never denied the financial pressures councils are under. But a business would be expected to make productivity and efficiency gains to manage costs within their envelope. Many hospitality businesses in the city, being hit by crippling increases in business rates, are having to do exactly that right now. They would be delighted to be gifted additional income. And so I welcome the Change in Innovation Newcastle programme that is likely to be approved in March to deliver efficiencies and manage costs. But in truth, this should have been happening long ago, and Labour should have long since stopped hiding behind their austerity narrative. I welcome the specific additions to the council tax support scheme outlined in Appendix D, notably the new support for care leavers, those who are terminally ill, and the full disregard of armed forces compensation payments. This is a welcome move in the right direction, and it should be applauded. But we must address a concerning trap that appears to have been created by the DWP's migration of benefits to universal credit, which was brought to my attention after our amendment was submitted. By chance yesterday I spoke to one of my residents who informed me that upon being moved recently to universal credit from employment support allowance and personal independence payments, the calculation of his income has changed. He's now receiving marginally less than previously, but has lost his 100% support, now only receiving half of that. That surely can't be right. His circumstances haven't changed, only the way his support is calculated. And so we must adjust our calculations to ensure that a simple change in the name of a benefit doesn't push vulnerable residents into poverty. Council tax is a deeply regressive form of taxation. Across the chamber, we agree on that. Until the government makes meaningful reforms, it is our duty to make the support scheme as progressive as possible to mitigate this. The mansion tax won't cut it alone. And so I formally move an amendment which we had hoped would be seen as adding to the offer, and which, to be clear, was submitted in the usual way and notified through the formal usual channels. Councillor Mitchell and I, despite Councillor Kilgar's beliefs, spoke extensively with officers and framed the wording of this amendment accordingly. That's why, for example, that we've requested a report on the potential financial impact and request a formal consultation in due course. We can, of course, choose to listen to a financial advisor and yet decide on a political basis that we would wish to do otherwise. And so specifically, we are calling for the savings disregard threshold to be uprated in line with inflation. The current threshold has stagnated, having been set, I believe, in 2014. It has fallen below the equivalent of 3 months' earnings for an individual on the full-time real living wage, whilst council tax has relentlessly increased year on year. A 3-month savings cushion is a widely accepted minimum for household financial resilience. But by keeping the threshold low, we are effectively penalising families for maintaining the very rainy day fund that prevents them falling into further hardship and requiring even more intensive intervention. And yes, I know that many households on the breadline would feel fortunate to have 1 month's savings in the bank, let alone 3. I am very familiar with the practical realities faced by many in our communities who choose between heating and eating, who never have money left at the end of the month, who feed the kids before they feed themselves. But they are already supported by the current scheme, and rightly so. What about those who find themselves in sudden, unexpected hardship? Those who lose their job, take what they can, but find their earlier financial prudence adding to their current pressures. Their circumstances might be temporary, but their financial resilience could be fundamentally undermined by the current policy. If we are to have a savings disregard at all, it is surely not defensible not to uprate it in any way, shape or form. And so I would urge Council to support our amendment and send a clear signal. I said earlier there is a political dimension to this, and I would note that when shameful reform-led councils across the country, including in our region, are actively reducing eligibility, lowering the maximum support available and pushing working people into hardship, the very people they claim to represent, we can say, Newcastle doesn't accept that. We choose to lead. We must use our growing council tax base to expand eligibility and deepen support. I urge you to support our amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could I call on Councillor Mark Mitchell to second the amendment, please? Reserve the right? Yep. Okay, thank you very much. Speakers, we have Councillor Hartley.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just want to take this opportunity to thank everyone across this chamber and the wider council who have been involved in implementing the enhancements to the council tax support scheme and the new council tax exemptions. Hopefully we can all agree in here that a mark of a good society is how we treat our most vulnerable, and there's no doubt that the changes made here are a step in the right direction. And I hope too that we will all support Councillor Chisholm's motion coming later in the agenda to help end the punitive impact that bailiff action and aggressive council tax collection processes can have on people who are most struggling. I listened carefully to what Councillor Ferguson was setting out, and I'm very interested by the proposals that the Liberal Democrats are putting forward. Very mindful of what Councillor Kilgour set out in terms of ensuring that we act lawfully, and I would hope there is a way that we can look at the financial impact report that's been requested about that motion, so we can come together and find some workable shared solutions on that, and perhaps even coming back to that at the budget meeting. So I'd like to put that out there as a suggestion. Hopefully Councillor Mitchell can respond to that later. Look, as we know, the council tax system doesn't work. It's not fairly distributed, and it's right that we're all coming together as we do across party to challenge the government, especially at a time when the Fair Funding Review seems to be adding insult to injury on widening the north-south divide and the urban-rural divide that is also exposed with the way that the regressive council tax is levied across the country. On the council tax support, look, as well as the very welcome changes to improving support for care leavers and veterans, I want to give a specific shout out to the Marie Curie End of Life charity for setting up the Marie Curie Councillors Network, which I've joined. They were lobbying for this 100% council tax support to be granted to those households with someone at the end of life who are at risk of dying in poverty. And I'm glad that Newcastle joins a growing group of forward-thinking, compassionate councils that agree with that. I know from my NHS work in palliative care that nurses, doctors, social workers and AHPs in those teams really welcome these changes, and they're keen to help support the council implement this as fully as possible and to work with the Cabinet to better understand how to ensure all of those who are at risk of dying in poverty have access to support, being particularly aware of the access and inclusion challenges that we need to work more on, so that everyone, regardless of diagnosis or characteristics, can be supported. And I'd hope, Councillor Kilgour, you'd take up that offer to meet with the palliative care specialists to discuss this, and I'd be very happy to connect you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No one else has indicated they want to speak, so Councillor Mitchell, you reserve the right.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I will start with a very simple statement that I think most people in this chamber will agree. Council tax is broken. It does not make many people in this country pay their fair share for local services, and it is a regressive tax that is paid proportionally way more by those with less well-off than the well-off in this country. Council tax needs to go. But we as a council cannot change that today. But I think we should not stop saying that this system is not a fair system for our residents. I'm disappointed by the attitude of the Leader of Council. She clearly hasn't thought about what we are trying to do. Because right now, if somebody has managed somehow to save £7,000 and they're on national living wage and they lose their job, they get no council tax support until they've reduced that amount to £6,000. That means their council tax bill could well end up being 100% tax on their savings. That is money that they have worked hard to save and they are losing. Now, we are not proposing, because we know the rules as well as everybody else, that we change this scheme immediately, because we know we need to consult, we know we need to cost this, and we know we need to do it properly. And that is why we've said it is likely that this can only be done next year. And yes, the Leader is also right, we cannot find the next council. However, tonight we can send a message that says that 6,000 is simply not enough in the current climate, and we should be doing more for people in this city who, through no fault of their own, lose their job and happen to have managed to save some money. Because I simply do not think it is fair, it is not justifiable that the first people dipping into their pocket, if they have £7,000 in the bank, is this council to collect council tax. So to respond to Councillor Hartley, we are very happy to work with you on this. We're very happy to work it across the chamber. But I would say to Labour councillors, are you so worried about giving a support to a few people in this council that you think the cost of that is more important? Are you not prepared to reach out a hand and at least work with every councillor in here to make this work? And if it takes a year, if it takes a report, if it takes us more discussion and scrutiny in this chamber, so be it. We are quite prepared to have that. The final point I want to reiterate, and I think we can all agree on this, is to support and amplify Councillor Ferguson's comments about council tax support. I'm one of the people who's unfortunate enough to be old enough to remember the poll tax and what the Conservatives did to this country with the poll tax. And one of the most iniquitous things in that was saying that every single person in the country, even on benefits, even with no income whatsoever, had to pay towards that. I am very glad that Newcastle has not and will not, under Labour or us or any other party in this, abolish the 100% council tax support. We should continue to shout about that from the rafters, because make no mistake, if Reform are in this chamber after May, they will be doing what they are doing in Durham, what they are doing in Kent. They will be going after the poorest people in Newcastle and telling them that they have to pay more, while Nigel Farage and his friends in big houses pay less and less through tax, through council tax, and through everything else. So if nothing else, I hope this chamber can unite in saying we utterly reject what Reform are doing to council tax support where they're in control, and that is another reason why we hope that nobody in Newcastle will support them.
Thank you very much. Councillor here, you reserve the right to speak.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This is one of the most important technical decisions we make each year. It underpins the entire budget of this council and provides the lawful foundation for setting council tax and protecting the services our residents rely on. The report reflects the number of chargeable properties, expected collection rates and the impact of discounts, exemptions and the council tax support scheme. It is robust, lawful and essential to the financial stability of this authority. I do want to say something about our council tax support scheme, which continues to be one of the most generous in the country. It supports thousands of households across Newcastle every year and is a vital safety net for residents on low incomes. For many, it is the difference between staying afloat and falling into crisis. It is reviewed regularly, it is evidence-led, and it was shaped through full public consultation for the 26-27 scheme. That shows that this council is serious about fairness, but also serious about doing things properly. And we are not standing still. We are already strengthening the scheme. As members have pointed out across the chamber, the proposed 2026-27 changes will provide additional support for care leavers, people who are terminally ill, and residents receiving payments from the Armed Forces Compensation Scheme. This is targeted, compassionate support delivered in a lawful and sustainable way, and it shows that we act when we see a clear need. If members believe the scheme should go further, that is a legitimate discussion to have, and one I think every member of this chamber would welcome. But it must be done in the right way. And that brings me to the amendment. The intention may be to help people, but the way it is being brought forward is not responsible. Any change to the council tax support scheme must be consulted on. This proposal was not part of the statutory consultation for 26-27, so it can't be implemented this year. I note that Councillor Mitchell referenced this in his speech, so I again ask, why now? It is not costed. We do not know how many people would become eligible, how much support they would receive, or how much the council would lose in income. We talked and heard Councillor Mitchell talk about the safety net and having a rainy day fund. What happens when they save £9,000? We need to have a proper discussion and consider all of the facts, not just an arbitrary figure plucked from thin air. So I would caution all members. You can score a political point, or you can put the city's financial stability first. We can move forward, and we can and should look at how we improve the support system, whether that is through conversations as group leaders or at scrutiny. We should do that throughout the next year, before the March meeting, but make sure that there is proper modelling and that consultation takes place when appropriate. This amendment is not the way to go about making the changes needed. Council tax is a regressive system. We can all agree with that. And we can all agree that reforms policies are a disgrace and that they should never have a place in a decent society. We agree with that on this side of the chamber. We want to help the most vulnerable in our city, and we'll continue to help the most vulnerable in our city, but we will do it the right way. For the sake of the council, our residents and our services, I really do urge members to support the report and reject the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I now call on Councillor Kilgar to reply.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll keep this brief. Colin, I know you don't like hearing that we've had to make £400 million worth of cuts, but just because you don't like it doesn't mean that it's not true. And you also said that you wanted to hear that you wanted Newcastle to lead the way. We already are leading the way. We have a really progressive, supportive council tax support scheme. And I'd remind you that it's Labour who brought the 3 additional proposals for agreement at this chamber, and we thank colleagues across the chamber for supporting them. And again, we're all agreed that council tax is a regressive tax. But that's not what this report is about. We have to set the council tax base in the same way that we have to set a legal budget. Now, I think I heard Colin mention that he requested a financial impact report. Apologies, Colin, if I misheard that. But what I would say is that we would need to see the outcome of that before implementing a change that we don't know the cost of and that we don't know the impact of, both to our own finances but also to how many people would become eligible and the implications of that. And I believe Councillor Mitchell told Council that I was correct in saying we couldn't implement this amendment this year, in which case, why have you brought it here? There are other arenas to have this conversation. It's entirely a legitimate conversation and debate to have. This is not the time nor the place to have it because we cannot implement it. So colleagues, again, I would urge you, please support the report, please reject the motion, and let's crack on with the business of Council. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kilgar. So we will now move on to a vote on the amendment using the Go Vote app. Linda, if you can start the vote. And please cast your votes when able to. I'll come to those of you who aren't able to do it after this. Is everybody who can finished? Oh, it's gone up again. Okay. Right, those of you who weren't able to vote electronically and support the amendment, please raise your hands. Those who weren't able to vote electronically and are against the amendment, please raise your hands. Any abstentions? Okay. For the amendments 23, against 32 and abstentions 5. Now, we now have to vote on the report itself. And as I said earlier, this has to be a named vote. So what I'll do, I'll ask you all who can vote electronically to vote electronically, and that will record your name. But afterwards, I will have to come to each one of you who couldn't vote electronically one by one and ask you to state your name and which way you're voting. Okay? Right. So, Linda, if we can start this vote. Everybody finished? Right. If you're in favour, can you please please raise your hand? And can you state your name and which way you're voting, please? Oh, sorry, you're voting in favour, yes. Sorry. Yes, Dorian? We need you to state your name for the record. Yeah. Yes. Alistair, did you have your hand up? No? All right, okay. Rob? Right. Is anybody voting against? Is anybody abstaining? Right. Okay, so that is 60 in favour, nobody against and no abstentions. Thank you very much, Council. Questions by members. 6 questions marked for oral reply were received and published on the agenda and deemed to have been put under Standing Order 9 of the Council Procedure Rules. 15 minutes is allocated to this item. Written responses will be provided if the time does run out. So the first question is from Councillor Stone to Councillor Kilgour in relation to developing further cooperation and connectivity with Bergen. So Councillor Kilgour, if you could reply.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Stone, for your question. Yes, we are hugely appreciative of our unique and long-standing relationship with Bergen. Our formal twinning dates back nearly 58 years, and our friendship goes back even further to the Second World War. This is not a symbolic relationship, but one rooted in shared history, values, and mutual respect. Newcastle and Bergen share common roots in fishing, shipbuilding, manufacturing, and offshore energy, and that shared heritage continues to be important. An important part of Newcastle's civic identity, and I'm fully committed to sustaining and strengthening it. Our relationship is also an economic one, focused on priority sectors including maritime, clean energy and offshore industries, tourism and the creative industries. Each year, as part of the Christmas visit, we host senior civic, business and academic leaders from Bergen for site visits and roundtable discussions with local businesses to build trade and investment opportunities. We also work closely with the Norwegian Chamber of Commerce to host an annual clean energy conference in Newcastle, bringing together North East and Norwegian companies. And I'm delighted to see Jet2 offer trial direct flights between Newcastle and Bergen starting in April this year. Hopefully, they'll prove popular enough to allow the company to offer year-long flight options, connecting our two great cities. And not only will this assist our economic links through strategic sectors in offshore energy, but also allow tourists to take advantage of city breaks. We'd also love to see the return of the ferry, which stopped running in 2008. We know that lots of people in both cities have fond memories of travelling by sea to visit both Newcastle and Bergen. And while at this point operators consider the route isn't economically viable, we'll continue to work with partners and our friends in Bergen to explore all ways of bringing it back. Bergen remains a strategic partner in our international work, and we intend not only to maintain, but to deepen that relationship in the months ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Kilgour. Councillor Stone, do you have a supplemental?
No, thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you to the leader for that reassurance. I absolutely agree with what she said, and I value and support anything we can do to move beyond. Obviously, warm words is one thing, but we need to make it a reality. And I know there are costs involved in doing that, but I would hope that the council will continue that work and redouble that work and work potentially with the mayor to look to what we can do to restore the physical ferry link as well. So I recognise that the ceremonial.
Is there a question, Councillor Stone?
I'm supporting. I'm agreeing with the leader, Lord Mayor. So if you let me finish, please, it will be appreciated. No. Thank you.
Well, it is supposed to be a question, but yes.
Yes, no, it's not. It's supposed to be my response. Thank you, Lord Mayor. So, to say, I thank for that reassurance, and I hope that we will work with the mayor, the regional mayor, just to see what we can do to make this happen. So, thank you very much, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Could I request that is actually placed on record that Councillor Stone has agreed with me? Thank you.
Right. Where are we? Right. The next question is from Councillor Ferguson, or again to Councillor Kilgour. Sorry. I forgot. There is a supplemental from Councillor Ashby. Sorry.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to ask the leader about the attitude of the administration towards our partner cities in Europe, linked to some of whom are as old as me, especially bearing in mind the recent government pronouncements about resetting our relationship with the rest of Europe, What are we doing to engage with our other sister cities and those with cooperation agreements? In particular, Gelsenkirchen, Germany, our longest relationship, Nancy in France, Malmo, Sweden. Taking the city's website at face value, nothing's happened for about 10 years. Whatever happened to the relationship with Hanover, Germany? Should we not be engaging with cities in the USA, Atlanta and Little Rock currently? At the very least, should you not be asking the Lord Mayor to send fraternal greetings to all those with whom we have a relationship, as we have done with Arras in the past, and not relying on Newcastle to the
several
World
questions so far.
for international links. There are five in there, all related questions.
So that's it, right? Is that it, Councillor Ashby? Yes?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like to respond?
Sure the Lord Mayor's perfectly capable and does send fraternal greetings to our twin and sister cities elsewhere at Christmas and at other times of year. I absolutely agree. I say we're all agreeing tonight. I agree with Councillor Ashby that those relationships are incredibly important. We will be publishing our international strategy soon. All of those cities are very important to us for lots of different reasons. We live in difficult and challenging times, and those European links and friendships are more important than ever, in my view. And I'm very keen that we not only maintain but strengthen them.
Yep, thank you very much. We move on to the second question now, which is from Councillor Ferguson to Councillor Kilgour. Can I invite Councillor Kilgour to respond, please? This is regarding the budgets and impending abolition of the police and crime
I thought it was going to. Sorry, I thought you were going to ask it of somebody else rather than me. Sorry. So yes, the announcement of the abolition of police and crime commissioners is very recent and won't actually happen until 2028. And understandably, the detail has not yet been published. Government, however, have been very clear that any savings will be reinvested in frontline policing. Of course, any additional funding for local authorities would be welcomed, and we would look carefully at how any such resources could be used to strengthen youth services, support community cohesion, and help prevent antisocial behaviour.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson, do you have a supplemental?
No, Lord Mayor, I'm happy with the answer that I've received. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I have Councillor Mark Mitchell who would like to ask a question.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. At a recent Liberal Democrat regional conference, we passed a motion saying that with the abolition of the Police and Crime Commissioners, it was important that those powers were not transferred directly to the mayors, especially given in the North East that the Mayoralties and the Police and Crime Commissioners are not coterminous, and both Durham and Northumbria Police do not match up with the mayors. So my question to the leader is this: would you agree with us that the abolition of the Police and Crime Commissioners is an excellent opportunity to restore real democratic control involving councillors and communities to policing, rather than once again putting it out of the reach and out of the knowledge of most of the public?
Thank you. Councillor Kilgour.
Until we see the proposals and until we understand what that transfer will look like, I don't think any of us are really in a position to comment. We don't know how boards or committees or anything else will work other than the proposed new boundary and overarching structure with an elected mayor at the head of it. That's the only detail we know. So until we've got further detail, I don't really think we're in a position to comment, Lord Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Move on to the third question, which is again from Councillor Ferguson to Councillor Kilgour, relating to the recent announcement about the £65 million investment in the existing arena. Councillor Kilgour.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you for your question, Councillor Ferguson. Newcastle is a city that supports growth and investment where it is right for our city and our communities, and where it contributes positively to our long-term economic, social and cultural ambitions. Our approach to development is therefore guided by quality, placemaking and public benefit, rather than simply the volume of development. The Council, alongside partners in the Fourth Yard site, have had and will continue to have constructive discussions with Legends Global and other stakeholders. Investment in the utility arena is welcome and reflects its role as an important North East cultural asset, supporting jobs, footfall and the wider visitor economy through the attraction of high-profile events. That investment does not undermine the Council's wider regeneration ambitions, and the Council remains committed to developing a clear and coherent master plan for Fourth Yards, alongside a strategic regeneration framework for the urban core, to ensure that future development is well planned, coordinated and delivers lasting benefit for Newcastle and the wider city region.
Thank you very much. Do you have a supplemental?
Yes, Lord Mayor. Thank you for your response, Councillor Kilgar. On the basis of the answer you've given me, I must clarify. Do you believe that there is a need for there to be two arenas either side of the river, or were you caught as unawares as the other decision makers that I've spoken to about this matter, about this announcement?
I don't think this announcement necessarily means that we will end up with two arenas, and I don't think it necessarily means that the arena on the Newcastle side will remain. I think discussions are ongoing with both parties, and we certainly remain in discussions and are supportive of our colleagues in Gateshead. But in the meantime, this announcement doesn't impact on our wider regeneration aims for Fourth Yards, which is our primary consideration.
Thank you very much. The next question is from Councillor Hartley to Councillor Hay about the annual litter bin review. Can I invite Councillor Hay to respond to the question?
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Hartley, for your question. The Cabinet does not take decisions on the placement or removal of individual litter bins. These are operational decisions made by officers using a clear set of data and a clear set of criteria, supported by local knowledge and data on nearby bin usage. This ensures that available resources are deployed where they will have the greatest impact. It is not feasible to provide a litter bin at every street, bus stop or highway. The locations of these bins were determined using a range of factors, including proximity to shops, transport links, schools and large buildings, as well as pedestrian footfall. Data from bin sensors help us monitor usage and adjust servicing schedules efficiently. During the annual review, where requested, fill levels can be shared with ward members to discuss and inform any potential litter bin relocations. We ask everyone to act responsibly by taking their litter home or carrying it until a bin is accessible. Cabinet remains committed to ensuring that the criteria for bin placements are fairly applied and effectively applied, and we will continue to review data and feedback to maintain a clean and welcoming environment for all. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hay. Councillor Hartley, do you have a supplemental?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. That's really interesting, Councillor Hay, especially given your response earlier to Mr Burbidge, which suggested that there was an opportunity then to review litter bin placements outside of the annual review. There were a couple of spots in Byker that are raised during the proper process over the annual review time frame. One on the entrance, opposite the entrance to Lawson Close, where bins have been removed by a local supermarket, and also on Shields Road, where that heads towards Chillingham Road. That's by a bus stop. Both sites where we've seen high levels of litter accumulating. So, given your response to Mr Burbidge earlier, do you think there's a possibility that you could sidestep the usual annual review, get involved and have a look at this so we can assess it compared to the criteria, see if the criteria needs to be updated?
Thank you, Councillor Hartley, for that question. In my response to Mr Burbidge, I did say I would inform local services and had requested they look into the request for an additional bin in the West Fenham ward. I did not say that the decision would be taken outside of the annual review. However, I'm sure officers present at the back of the chamber have heard your request and will come back to you in due course. I'm clear that as an administration and as Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services, We want to ensure that the city remains clean and that residents can take pride in the city, and we'll do all we can to ensure that remains a reality. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The fifth question is from Councillor Peters to Councillor Kilgar regarding recommendations made in an open letter on improving the transparency of council decision making. Can I invite Councillor Kilgar to respond to the question?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Peters, for your question. I will reply to your longer letter in writing in due course. As you will know, there are already numerous and well-established ways for members to engage with and influence council decision-making, including through scrutiny and other committees, oral and written questions to council, and direct engagement with cabinet members and officers. These routes exist specifically to ensure transparency, challenge and accountability, and they are available to all members. Every month I have emphasised that this has been an iterative process, and that you'll recall the Constitutional Committee agreed last September to review elements of the Cabinet Statement process after 6 months. That is the proper forum for considering any changes, and it would be inappropriate to bypass that agreed process or for me to unilaterally agree to any changes. It's also important to be clear the Council already meets its legal and democratic obligations on transparency. A statutory forward plan is published on our website and emailed to councillors, giving at least 28 days' notice of Cabinet decisions. It's updated monthly alongside published Cabinet agendas and reports, which include the necessary information to support informed scrutiny. In my view, transparency is best achieved by using these established processes effectively rather than duplicating them.
Thank you very much. Councillor Peters, do you have a supplemental?
I would just be keen to understand that, it's really helpful to understand that we are meeting our legal and statutory obligations. However, I would say that, the fact that we very rarely have a full public gallery, the fact that when we look at the watching numbers for council online, clearly there is work to do in terms of engaging the public with the work of council, and so I just wonder how you feel that we could improve that.
I'm not sure that the Cabinet Statement is the one thing that's going to make people watch our YouTube channel. I mean, exciting though I try to make it. I also think that the business of council is about more than this meeting. This is our formal meeting. This is not a scrutiny committee. It's a formal meeting. It's where we make very important decisions, like agreeing the council tax base earlier, like we will do with the budget in March. The ways in which we need to engage with residents are many and varied, and as hopefully members in the chamber know, as group leaders, we agreed that a way forward for the next council plan was around extensive engagement with residents in new and different ways. Officers have listened to recommendations and suggestions from all members about how we go to different places, how we make sure we're talking to different people, how we make sure that we engage with and get the views of as many different people and as wide a range of people as possible. And for me, that's more important than some people watching a YouTube channel. It is important, and I do want people to be engaged with the work of council, of course I do, but hearing their views and going to them rather than expecting them to come to us, I think is probably the answer.
Thank you very much. The final question is from Councillor Byrne to Councillor Kilgar again. We'll have to check the ratings of the YouTube channel after this. About the prioritisation and allocation of council resources. Can I invite Councillor Kilgar to respond?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Byrne. As leader, I'm clear that this council prioritises its resources through the council plan, which we agreed in this chamber in 2024. That plan sets the political priorities of the council and provides the framework against which decisions are taken. Resource allocation is therefore deliberate, evidence-led and planned. Directorate business plans follow directly from the council plan and set out how those priorities will be delivered. And the budget is the financial expression of those choices. Every decision taken by Cabinet, individual Cabinet members and officers is required to demonstrate a clear contribution to the agreed priorities and is subject to scrutiny. There's no shortage of opportunity for challenge or accountability, as I've just outlined in response to the previous question. Scrutiny, performance reporting and this chamber itself provide multiple routes for members to test decisions and priorities, and members are free to make full use of them.
Thank you very much. Do you have a supplemental, Councillor Byrne?
I do, thank you. Is there a process in place to change the allocation of any resources that have been agreed in response to changes in priorities?
Councillor Kilgour?
The priorities will be... So we have a council plan that sets out our priorities. We've agreed a consultation exercise to give us the evidence base so that whoever is in this role next year, in May, next municipal year rather, has an evidence base on which to base their new council plan, based on residents' priorities. That would be the forum at which we would change our priorities, and that would be the way in which we would direct those resources.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The response to a written question submitted is included in the supplemental agenda, which is published on the Council's website. We now come to item number 11, Cabinet Statement. I now call on Councillor Kilgour to present the report.
Sorry about that, Lord Mayor. Thank you. Our first statement of 2026 contains lots to celebrate, lots to look forward to, and some significant areas requiring the attention of us all. As ever, there's much more in the report than I can cover in 5 minutes, but there are some key areas I'd like to touch on. The festive period already feels a distant memory, but it was another superb Christmas in Newcastle. Our Christmas markets continue to go from strength to strength, supporting local businesses, bringing millions of visitors to our city and contributing millions of pounds to our local economy. In fact, we saw over 2.75 million visits, including repeat visits and longer stays on site. 94% of visitors interviewed rated the market positively, with over 90% saying it had improved on the previous year. Now, I know this doesn't fit the narrative that some like to spin, but it evidences the market's positive economic impact for traders and existing businesses alike and brings much needed footfall to our city, which is fantastic to see. The return of fireworks to the quayside for New Year's Eve was equally impressive. It's quite something that our new Hawemene event was a sold-out success at the first time of asking. Of course, the festive period can be a tough time for many, so it was incredible to see citywide support for our Every campaign, helping to make Christmas a special time for our children and young people who may otherwise have gone without. The generosity we saw was genuinely amazing, and I'd like to thank everyone who took part in donating and delivering over 4,000 gifts to children across Newcastle. There were other forms of support in place too. £13,000 to help wellbeing hubs open their doors between the end of December and beginning of January, £40,000 of fuel vouchers issued, and thousands of free places made available to children through our Holiday Activity Fund. These are real examples of targeted support, easing the burden on our residents and supporting them with the cost of living. And we continue to see our services perform strongly for our communities in the face of rising demand. Our amazing adult social care and prevention colleagues were recognised at the North East Regional Final of the Great British Care Awards. Newcastle City Learning continues to deliver for adults and young people looking to improve their prospects. And we were incredibly proud to see our Sustaining Tenancies at Risk programme presented as good practice in the government's National Plan to End Homelessness, published in December. By the same token, we're working hard to ensure our services are fit for the future. We've secured almost £2.5 million in capital investment to develop children's homes for children with complex needs. We've been engaging stakeholders to shape our 0 to 19 Healthy Child programme, and we continue to feed into the National Council House Building Support Service to ensure Newcastle is at the forefront of addressing the country's housing crisis. My Cabinet has taken clear and constructive action on the decisions our communities have entrusted us to make. We've presented ambitious, forward-looking proposals to ensure we continue our record of sound financial management, with the consultation for our 3-year budget closing today. We've also approved a draft property service improvement plan to drive strong and effective management of our property portfolio, and we've approved action to strengthen our paediatric occupational therapy services so our residents can live safely and comfortably in their own homes. Looking ahead, we've submitted strong support for national plans to create a smoke-free UK, calling for strict legislation around the sale of vapes, while also calling for the funding for our excellent enforcement teams to enable them to carry out their vital roles in our communities. We're also preparing for the introduction of citywide food waste collections, following a successful trial period involving thousands of households, with plans to roll this out across Newcastle as we work towards being an even more sustainable city. We're working with partners like the Mental Health Trust in anticipation of the Mental Health Act's Code of Practice publication. And we're standing up for care workers in Newcastle, making a direct submission to the government's Fair Pay Agreement consultation, and doing so as an accredited real living wage employer to ensure that those who care for our most vulnerable receive fair pay for the vital work that they do. I look forward to working with you all to celebrate the great things happening across our city this year. There are both challenges and exciting times ahead. There are some in this chamber who like to talk this city down, but they're wrong. Newcastle is a city poised to take its rightful place on the world stage, and I hope you'll all join me in striving to make Newcastle as fair and as prosperous as it can be for all of our residents. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kilgar. Right, there are 6 questions. And can I ask each member to read out their question for the Cabinet member to respond to? Now, I'm going to change the order slightly because I noticed 2 of them are for Councillor Kilgar and 4 of them are for Councillor Mains. So we might as well take the 2 for Councillor Kilgar first, as she's already by the microphone. So can I call on Councillor Byrne to ask the first question, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. In section 3.4 of the statement, we are told that rather than focusing on cutting services, we will address the forecast budget gap through an ambitious and cross-cutting programme of transformation called Change and Innovation Newcastle. What evidence does the Cabinet have that this transformation programme will deliver the required savings? Thank you.
Councillor Kilgar.
Councillor Byrne is right. There are no service cuts included in the draft budget presented to Cabinet in December 2025. The Labour government is providing more funding, and I will continue to press for even more. The planned savings next financial year from the Change and Innovation Newcastle programme are £3.9 million and are planned to come from several different areas of activity as set out in the draft budget report. We've built some contingency into this figure also to ensure the budget is based on a prudent assessment of the savings that are achievable. Some of these areas of activity are more developed than others. For example, we've been reviewing how residents access services for well over a year and have developed a large number of opportunities to streamline processes that will improve customer experience and reduce costs. We've learned from good practice elsewhere. And of course, Newcastle has a strong history of delivering on transformation. We're putting in place a robust programme management office and change capacity to drive and monitor delivery of the work streams, including benefits realisation. We're continuing to design the programme in detail over coming months to ensure that the opportunities identified deliver the financial and non-financial benefits.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mark Mitchell, the other question for Councillor Kilgar.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Neither section 3.2 of the report nor section 3.27 of the underlying report to Cabinet on the commercial property portfolio provide sufficient assurance to Council that Cabinet is really getting to grips with losses on the commercial property portfolio. What measures is the leader taking, especially since we don't currently have a resources member of Cabinet, to ensure that these losses will be brought under control promptly?
Thank you very much. Councillor Kilgar.
Thank you. Firstly, we do have a Cabinet member for resources. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Councillor Barry Phillipson back to Cabinet in that role. and I will clearly be working very closely with him. Secondly, we have a plan in place, which we've published and which we will be held to account over. However, the income shortfall against the property portfolio budget is due to a small number of underperforming assets, and options and plans for each of those are being developed. The first of them is Eldon Square, following the strategic review several years ago, which identified that there's too much retail capacity in the city. We've been working with our partners to develop the leisure capacity, the leisure office, at Eldon Square. Flight Club opened in late 2025. Freight Island is due to open in the summer, and plans are in the final stages of being developed for a leisure operator for the former Next site. As well as directly improving the financial performance of Eldon Square, these venues will increase and diversify footfall in the city centre more generally. The second is the multi-million-pound development of the Granger Market, which is nearing completion. That will be modernised and refreshed, and we know this is a historic and much-loved building deserving of the current upgrade. On the back of this, we're expecting to see increased footfall and trade for the local businesses that operate from the market, which will have a financial benefit for the council. Another of the four buildings is Higham House. Officers have reviewed all of the options for this empty building, and a report will be coming to Cabinet next month on the planned next steps. The different options considered have been presented to scrutiny on a confidential basis on at least 2 occasions, I understand. And finally, Partnership House. This asset is more problematic as there is still a large amount of debt associated with the purchase of the building by the Liberal Democrat administration in 2009. However, officers are currently considering options for this building, and further details on this will be shared with scrutiny in due course.
Okay, thank you very much. The final 4 questions are for Councillor Mains. So can I ask Councillor Herridge, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The Cabinet statement highlights the success of the recent Every Christmas campaign, which delivered over 4,000 gifts to care leavers, children in need and young carers across the city. Can the Cabinet member confirm how we will evaluate impact of this initiative on long-term outcomes for care-experienced young people, and what further support is planned to build on this positive work throughout the year?
Thank you for that question, Councillor Erridge. Yes, the Every initiative is going from strength to strength, and obviously Every includes our Christmas campaign, but the wider programme of Every does offer things like work experience and experience for young people, celebrating other religious and cultural events, and also increasing access to high-quality events in the city. This year, more than 4,000 gifts were donated by staff, residents, businesses and partner organisations. That's double the number that we got last year. It also included within that trips out, going to the Panto and things like that. So very, very generous response. The views and experiences of the children and young people is central to Every. Alongside the volume of gifts, like I've said, they also had lots of festive experiences, and the feedback from the children and young people is now benefiting how the campaign will roll out in other years and what differences could be made. We've had some absolutely great comments from people. One person wrote that as someone who'd been in care for a long time, they really appreciate the gift vouchers. This is a young carer with children, and as she said, you know, although she doesn't have any of her family apart from her children, getting those vouchers made, I feel very happy and included and like a normal person, and she's always very grateful. So thanks again to everybody. I know everybody in this chamber was extremely generous, and I look forward to the 2026 campaign.
Thank you, Councillor Mains. Can I call on Councillor Hartley to ask the next question? Can Councillor Ellis stand ready, please?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And I do realise I wrote this question before Ed Miliband's announcement this morning about the Warm Homes Plan, but I think there's still some concerns about cuts to insulation retrofit in there that mean my question still stands. So the question, it's good to read about the work going on in the Warm Homes Healthy Futures project. Now that the Chancellor has axed the energy company obligation, how is this forecast to impact the Council's work in this area? And do we have a sense of the financial burden if we are to maintain this work on energy efficiency to keep lowering household bills despite these cuts?
Okay, Councillor Mains.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hartley. Obviously, there is more news coming out today, so you might want to send me some extra questions around that. But yes, the Warm Home Healthy Futures programme is supported by the National Energy Action and Public Health rather than what was the energy company obligation. The scheme currently runs until the end of March 2026. And in terms of alternatives to ECO, we are already running the Warm Homes Local Grant Scheme. It has similar eligibility to ECO4 and can deliver the full range of measures to homes other than gas central heating. Those measures can be funded via other sources, but as I've said at the start there, on the back of the announcements today, please do send me further questions and I'll get back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mains. Can Councillor Wright please be ready? Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The statement notes the delivery of 22 new level access bungalows for social rent at Deerbush. So they were built in response to long-standing demand and funded in part by Homes England. With over 1,200 applications received for these homes, can the Cabinet member explain how the lessons learned from Deerbush will shape future council-led housing development, particularly in delivering accessible homes and tackling antisocial behaviour challenges on regenerated sites?
Thank you. Councillor Mains.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Well, today I went out to those bungalows and I was joined by local councillor Tracy Mitchell. And, you know, I'm sure Tracy will agree with me, the homes that have been built by the council and our wonderful apprenticeships are absolutely amazing. Very high spec. They're also open to every family, not just over 55s, which was what happened in Walker. We're really pleased to see that this is part of our place shaping strategy, which is going to Cabinet in February, so you'll get to know a bit more about that. And that strategy is working with local communities to understand the need in their areas and help shape the schemes that come forward for everybody. In the place strategy, we identified that there is a need for accessible homes of all tenures in the city, and we are keen to ensure that there is a supply of homes that enable people to live independently. After each development has been completed, we undertake a lessons learned review in partnership across departments to review the finished homes against the initial brief and to consider any issues that arose during the build phase. Those lessons are then fed into the development briefs for future build homes. That answers the question.
Final question from Councillor Wright.
I'm going to ask Councillor Adam to come up. Because it's in his area, not mine.
No? Councillor Wright.
Right. My question is about the holiday activities and food programme. It continues to play a key role in supporting households with food vouchers and essential costs through the school holiday periods between April 2025 and March 2026. Could the Cabinet member set out how we are targeting support to those most in need, how we are monitoring uptake across wards, and what steps we are taking to address any shortfalls in provision given ongoing cost of living pressures? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Walker.
Thank you. The Holiday Activities and Food Programme is well established in Newcastle, providing a range of free and fun activities and a nutritious meal a nutritious meal over Easter, summer and winter school holidays. It's specifically aimed at children and young people who are eligible for free school meals, providing families with a vital lifeline over holiday periods and supporting children and young people to make happy memories. Over the past 2 winter holidays, Food parcels have been delivered to families to complement the existing offer, recognising that uptake in the winter programmes can be lower due to the bank holidays. To ensure the effective delivery of the overall programme, we have commissioned Street Games, a national VCS organisation known for their expertise in delivering high-quality HAF programmes. Working with Street Games, we've prioritised increasing the uptake of the HAF programme amongst children and young people with SEND and teenagers, which has traditionally seen lower participation. In the most recent winter programme, almost 2,000 spaces were available exclusively for children and young people with SEND, and importantly, our HAF programme received positive feedback from our amazing SEND youth voice inspectors who visited SEND projects last summer. We have also seen increased uptake among teenagers by increasing the flexibility and range of activities available, creating a more appealing offer that works for them. It's fantastic news that the future of the holiday activities and food programme has been confirmed nationally for the next 3 years, enabling us to continue building on these strong foundations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's the end of that item. Thank you, councillors. Item 12, appointments. Does council agree the appointments? Yes.
Lord Mayor, as I'm sure you know, 2 Labour councillors resigned on the 1st of January, which means once again the proportionality calculations for council are no longer correct. So I would ask that in future, whenever there changes the composition of council, that frankly I don't have to be asking that we change the calculations, because what is happening once again is Labour and the Liberal Democrats have too many members on committees and everybody else in the chamber has not enough.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sure that'll be noted by our legal officer. So sorry, are you...
Point of order as well, Lord Mayor.
Point of order, yes.
Sorry, Lord Mayor. I'm sure officers have already started the calculation process, but the point of order is just an amendment, if we can, Lord Mayor, just with regards to the corporate parent committee for Councillor Laura Cummings to come off that committee and Councillor Susan Anthony to replace her.
Okay. Thank you. So does council agree the appointments as amended thereby? Yeah? Sound? Great. Lovely. Thank you very much. We now come on to item 13, notice of motion winter maintenance. I'd gather, yes, Councillor Kingsland. Okay. Councillor Kingsland's declared an interest and is leaving the chamber. So I'll call on Councillor Mark Donnelly to move this motion, to be seconded by Councillor Hunter.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I believe this motion is likely to be accepted tonight, so I'll not say it too much. Firstly, I would like to say that I don't believe any of us would think that the privatised service, which has been in existence now for 10 years, is an improvement on the council's in-house provision. I also believe that spending 5.9 million of public money, when statistically we do have mild and wet winters, is not necessarily good value, especially when generally we could, and we did do this traditionally, put the money straight back into frontline services. I think we all need to recall that it was only last November when we had only 2 cold days of bad weather, and Colas used the incorrect amount of grit, which was only 10 grams. Now, this is in comparison to the City Council that always used to use 20 grams of grit, basically half the amount. And just so everybody is aware that when this contract was awarded in 2016, it was the case that Colas immediately decided to go to 1 operative less and 1 machine less. So the service is not like for like between what we provided as a City Council and now what the private sector provides. This was all done by a private company wanting to optimise the routes and make efficiencies. Well, they were certainly making efficiencies in November because we're using 50% less grit. Lord Mayor, I think this motion is quite simple. We take back what we provided as a city for many years as a very good service. We had the accountability and transparency. And most importantly, Lord Mayor, we can take back what we own, which is Rothbury Terrace. So it's a bit of a win-win. I hope that we can support the initial motion and bring back a service that our staff can do better than the private sector. Thank you very much, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Hunter, a second.
Lord Mayor, I agree with the proposer of the motion that we can improve and look to bring back in-house the Gritton provision. We know from what has been said that we are 50% better than what we currently have. This will bring more accountability, safer roads and streets, which are passable when the winter weather occurs. Lord Mayor, no other council has followed Newcastle's example in privatising the gritting service. I hope the motion is supported. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hunter. There is an amendment. Can I call on Councillor Kane to move the amendment to be seconded by Councillor Cookson?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. The main purpose of my amendment is to insert active travel into proceedings. When the first half of the movement strategy was recently published, it recommitted the council to the transport hierarchy. For those who don't know, that puts pedestrians, and in that I include people using wheelchairs and people, young kids in pushchairs, number one. People on push bikes, e-bikes and scooters are second. Third comes public transport, and so on down to the private car. During icy spells, it is not unusual to find major pedestrian cycle routes impassable. I may show my sort of parochialism, but Sandyford Road can be very difficult to walk along, particularly over the bridge over the entrance to the Northumbria University car park. City Stadium ices up, and so does Armstrong Bridge. All of those, well, the last two are popular cycle routes, all three of them are very popular pedestrian routes. In January 2021, I put a motion to Council to ask Cabinet to alter the winter maintenance regime to comply with that transport hierarchy. Councillor Kilgour at the time was a Cabinet member, and she agreed with my arguments, if I recall correctly, but said her hands were tied by the COLAS contract. Now the COLAS contract is up, I thought I'd have another bite of the cherry. Bringing the contract in-house would give the Council the flexibility to optimise the winter maintenance system for all forms of transport, and particularly for the more vulnerable in society. And I hope the Cabinet will embrace that, otherwise the commitment made in the movement strategy is meaningless. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cookson? Reserve the right. Okay. Let's have a look. Can I call on Councillor Huddart, please? And can Councillor Sathian stand ready?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. It's not just the prioritisation of bus routes and major roads gritting, although I'd like to see some more side roads gritted as quickly. What I wanted to draw attention to was the Armstrong Bridge, where dozens of adults, teenagers and children cycle across every day to either work or college or to school. And it's forgotten about because it's not on a bus route. And so the gritters don't go along. I was only talking to a lady on Saturday about the problems that she and her family had in the recent icy weather, where they had to dismount and push their bikes across because they were sliding all over the place. And I don't think it's a big thing to get some of the those push trolleys that they have for gritting on pavements and things to just go along on a morning along the Armstrong Bridge, because there are hundreds of cyclists use that every day, and we wouldn't like them to stop cycling. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can Councillor Ashby stand ready? Councillor Sathian, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly, for raising this important topic at a very timely part of the year. So the current winter maintenance contract we have with the contractor covers all aspects of highway mechanized gritting, including forecasting, predicting, and the allocation of treatments, and is in place until September 2026. The contract has a separate arrangement in place with Northumberland County Council, which utilizes their decision-making expertise to allow them to take instruction for treatments for them. The Council still maintains responsibility for any required treatments or clearance to other areas such as footpaths, shopping areas, and the restocking and maintenance of self-help bins. The Council also maintains control of our salt stocks, both ordering and stock control usage, which sits outside our contractual arrangement. Councillor Donnelly has not quite correctly referenced the legislation under the Highways Act 1980. Therefore, to clarify, we have a duty under Section 41, the Highways Act, so far as is reasonably practicable, to ensure that safe passage is free from snow or ice. Under Section 150, there is a requirement for the Highway Authority to remove accumulation of snow which forms an obstruction. Cabinet is committed to ensure that we have the appropriate arrangements in place to ensure we comply with these statutory responsibilities. I can confirm that the winter services policy that was accepted by Cabinet in November 2018 is reviewed annually to take account of any changes and will be updated to reflect any changes made as part of the new arrangements. For these reasons detailed, we recommend that the Council accepts this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ashby.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The Council has a stockpile of thousands of tonnes of grit or salt for use in severe winter weather. A very small proportion of this fills bins at strategic places so that residents can treat patches of roads known from experience to be hazardous without having to report to the council. That's good community involvement in its own safety. As I said, those bins consume a small fraction. When residents request additional bins, perceived hazards, they're referred to the council's policy online. That's all fine, although it does smack of ducking the issue. Council officers should carry out an annual review with ward councillors of existing and potential siting of bins each autumn before the refill cycle starts. In the case of parklands, I can take officers to a disused bin which could be relocated to a location where it would be of value, so there's not even a capital cost involved to sort one problem. Newly adopted roads, of which we have some, may also need similar attention. As a walker, a cyclist and a motorist, I support the amendment.
Thank you very much. Councillor Cookson, you reserve the right to speak. Just waving it, right. Councillor Donnelly, would you like to reply to the debate?
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. Firstly, I'm quite shocked. I'm not used to my motions being accepted, but extremely happy that it will be this evening. I must say that I'm very pleased and excited that we all believe in the council staff, and certainly that our staff can do a better job than the private contractor. So I look forward to it hopefully being brought back in-house and taking back control of Rothbury Terrace. I thank council this evening and hope that it'll be many more times like this. Thank you very much, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Well, first of all, we need to deal with the amendment. Is the amendment agreed? Did I hear a no there? No. Right. So we need a vote. Okay. Oh, no. So everybody who can vote electronically, vote electronically. I'll come to you in a minute. Yes? Right, okay, if we close the vote. Those of you who weren't able to vote electronically, who are in favour of the amendment, please show. Sounds like it's the goal there. Yeah, second one. Okay, yeah. Those who are against and weren't able to vote electronically? And any oh, sorry. Yeah, you got them? Yeah. Any abstentions? Nope. Okay. So that is 25 for, 31 against with no abstentions. So is the motion agreed? Agreed. Thank you very much, Council. Could somebody get Councillor Kingsland, please? Don't want to start without her. Yes, good. Right, item 14. Notice of motion securing the future of new... Declaring interest, okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Cookson. I will call on Councillor Ferguson to move this motion, to be seconded by Councillor Mark Mitchell. Yep.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. As we meet here tonight, Newcastle stands at a threshold. Over the last decade, we have seen our city's skyline change as the old and familiar has been replaced with the new. Structures of steel and glass transforming the city centre and supporting economic development. On Pilgrim Street at Newcastle Helix, where I should declare I work, and in Founders Place, new Grade A office space and other facilities are being or have been delivered. I am proud that in two cases their genesis came through the previous Liberal Democrat administration, taking the long view to deliver economic regeneration for the city. But the reality we are now faced with is that we are reaching the end of a development cycle. There is a visible pipeline gap. No projects of a similar scale or strategic impact are ready to break ground. If we fail to secure the next wave of development, we risk a slowdown in the city's economic momentum, a shortage of Grade A space for firms looking to relocate in the late 2020s, and a damaging lacuna for skilled construction employment opportunities that could have long-term effects. To look west at the southern cities of Liverpool and Manchester is to see what could be possible. In Newcastle, we would have aspired to go toe-to-toe with them at one time, and the momentum is there, but we must keep it going. Momentum lost is much harder to regain than it is to maintain. I sympathise with Green members' views, as noted in their amendment, that economic development must be inclusive, broad-reaching and supportive of wider social and environmental factors. Manchester and Liverpool are as much a cautionary tale as an exemplar in that regard. Regeneration must reach out across the city to all our communities, directly and indirectly. I also appreciate what Labour are seeking to do with their amendment, but I'm afraid for me it falls short. The developments are not of the significance, scale, focus or form necessary to address our concerns that there's a real pipeline gap that needs to be addressed, that the city must be clear on what it wants to see and where. Indeed, that the Combined Authority as well needs to clearly articulate its ambition and ability to deliver. because we don't need the confusion of what's happening to the Gateshead Quays site or our arena, as we've previously discussed, to stall development or hinder confidence. We need to show that we can develop and deliver at scale and at pace, in partnership with the private sector and using public money for only what public money can deliver. This motion calls for immediate strategic action, not a plan for what to do in the future. We cannot afford to wait. Let's build on what we have here, now, and secure the future of Newcastle's development today, so we don't wake up to a stagnant economy tomorrow. I urge you to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mark Mitchell, the second. Reserve the right. Okay. There are 2 amendments to this. I'd like to see Councillor Hartley advancing towards the microphone. The first one is from Councillor Hartley, to be seconded by Councillor Peters. Councillor Hartley.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This is a strange time in Newcastle politics. There is a mood out there that I often hear on the doorstep and in conversations with business, that it feels like nothing will get done until these May elections are out of the way. We must not let that mood take grip any further. We as Greens will be doing all we can to win more influence in the council in May, and indeed we are ready to lead this council. But we've had lots of new people joining, and not just our dear friend, the former Mayor of the North of Tyne. Many people with lots of skills and experiences. And welcome, Jamie. But you all know that I share the view of the many in here who believe we should always put residents above party politics. And I want to say here and now, and it's relevant to this motion, a thank you to those in this chamber who are working hard to collaborate to make sure no big decisions are swerved. Labour can collaborate by supporting our amendment tonight. Locally in Byker, we've seen collaboration in action. Despite our differences across the Labour, Independent and Green group, I'm very proud to say we've come together cross-party last month to use some of our ward budget to support the community interest company Orange Box North East continue their brilliant work tackling furniture poverty and promoting upcycling and recycling as a way to divert more waste from landfill and incineration. I also had the pleasure last week of meeting with British Engines, who have a site in Byker at St Peter's, to learn about their expansion proposals on the Parsons site. And it was a really good discussion about how we can support Newcastle, local jobs, development, whilst also doing what they can as a business to reduce emissions and protect nature. Why do I say all this? I say it because our amendment to this motion just seeks us to push a bit further for both supporting commercial development and doing it in environmentally, socially and economically sustainable ways, for the good of us all. If I get a chance, probably won't do, to speak to our human rights motion later, I'll be saying something similar. When we're out in the world doing business for our city, we must stand firm to our values. So, as Greens, we commend Councillor Ferguson for bringing this motion. I know that he, as well as Councillor Kilgour, Councillor Mitchell of the Newcastle Independents and Councillor Williams, all as group leaders in this chamber, want to see Newcastle do well. Yeah, we Greens absolutely want to see Newcastle do well, and very much tonight as well. I haven't been checking the scores. Our amendments are friendly amendments, designed to note that cross-party collaboration is going to be important, essential if we are to support the commercial development pipeline, and also to reaffirm our commitment to tackling poverty, building an inclusive economy, reducing emissions and protecting nature across our city. I hope you will support this friendly amendment and support the motion.
Thank you very much. Councillor Peters, the second, the amendment.
Thank you. Development of the built environment is a crucial part of living out our values and using the design and construction process as a way to attract and retain fresh talent to the city. committing to high standards of development to ensure that our efforts endure for future generations and that the manner of construction minimises environmental impact. And it's also about creating space for our city to continue to build its international reputation for industry, innovation and culture. We are leading the way. When done right, development and improvement of our city's infrastructure are clearly positive things. However, we must take care not to seek out development and infrastructure expansion simply for its own sake, but to meet the needs of the residents and visitors to this city. Boosting our economy is a crucial part of that, but this must not be at the expense of environmental and social sustainability, which is what our amendment seeks to do. And I second. Thanks.
Thank you very much. The second amendment will be proposed by Councillor Kilgour and seconded by Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This amendment was meant as a friendly one, and it's disappointing that the opposition wouldn't accept it as such. And I would say that the Greens can collaborate by supporting our amendment. Newcastle's regeneration has not happened by chance. It's happened because the city has had Labour leadership with the confidence to plan for the long term, the courage to invest and the determination to make growth work for our residents, not just the market. This amendment is about the future. It's about ensuring that after a decade of delivery, we don't drift into complacency or short-termism, but instead set out our clear pipeline for the next phase of growth. Over the last decade, we've transformed our city centre. Grade A offices, mixed-use developments and innovation districts have re-established Newcastle as a serious economic city, competing confidently at a national and international level. Pilgrim Street is a clear example. The HMRC hub and surrounding development did not appear by magic. They were delivered because Labour made the case for public investment, assembled land, took risks and backed the city when others would not. The same is true at Newcastle Helix, a flagship innovation district built on patient, strategic investment, not quick wins. And at Founders Place, Labour showed that regeneration can respect our industrial heritage while creating the jobs of the future. These developments have delivered thousands of jobs, brought investment into the city and strengthened our local economy. They are the direct result of the Urban Core programme and the city deals secured by a Labour administration in 2012, one of the first of its kind in the country. 14 years into a 25-year programme, we are ahead of target with strong occupancy rates even in a challenging national climate. But Lord Mayor, this success brings responsibility. We are reaching the end of a development cycle. Without a clear pipeline, cities stall. Without political leadership, opportunities leak away. And without public sector direction, the market does not deliver the kind of growth that our communities need. Demand for space is rising because our economic strategy is working. We've backed science and technology, clean energy, creative industries, health and professional services. Not through slogans, but through planning, land assembly and investment. These sectors are choosing Newcastle because this council has created the conditions for them to succeed. And that's why this amendment matters. The strategic regeneration framework for the Newcastle Gateshead Urban Core is important, and it's more than a vision document. It underpins a clear commercial pipeline, identifying the next strategic employment sites and setting out how we will bring them forward in a coordinated, purposeful way. We already know where many of those opportunities lie. Despite Councillor Ferguson's words, Fourth Yard is one of the most significant regeneration opportunities in the country, backed by government funding because this council made the case. City Gateway East and the North East Space Skills and Technology Centre will anchor high-value growth in an emerging national sector. The expansion of Newcastle College and our hospitals will drive skills, health and inclusive growth. And the Health Innovation Neighbourhood shows how Labour connects economic development with well-being and place. The Newcastle Gateshead Mayoral Development Zone gives us a further tool to align investment across multiple sites, supporting jobs, culture, hospitality and the visitor economy together, not in isolation. This reflects our belief in collaboration, not competition, including our ongoing partnership with Gateshead and our joint local plan. But none of this will happen by accident. It requires political choices to align planning across boundaries, to prioritise infrastructure and to work with the North East Combined Authority to unlock the funding and powers that devolution will deliver. And that's why this amendment sets out 3 clear commitments. First, our commercial pipeline strategy, because governing is about shaping the future, not reacting to it. Second, we've set out clearly how major sites like Forth Yards and Gateshead Quays support that pipeline, because regeneration must be strategic, not piecemeal. And third, we'll continue to work with the Combined Authority to secure the infrastructure investment needed to turn plans into places and opportunities into jobs. Lord Mayor, this is the difference that Labour leadership makes. We plan, we invest, we deliver. And we do so with a clear purpose, to build a city where growth is inclusive, sustainable and rooted in opportunity for working people. This amendment is about keeping Newcastle moving forward with ambition, with confidence and with Labour values at its core. I urge members to support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Heard, a second.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. The opposition motion rightly recognises the scale of regeneration our city has seen over the last decade. Our skyline, our economy and our reputation have been transformed through major commercial developments that have created jobs, attracted investment and repositioned Newcastle as a place to do business. It is important to say tonight that that has not happened by accident. These schemes sit within the Urban Core Regeneration Programme and the City Deal signed in 2012, which created the Newcastle Gateshead Accelerated Development Zone. At 14 years into a 25-year programme, we are already ahead of target. All 3 ADZ sites are now over halfway to completion, have supported thousands of jobs and are delivering Grade A office space that is outperforming national trends, including a take-up rate last year 37% above the 10-year average. This is a success on a very large scale. Our commercial buildings are filling quickly, even in a difficult national market. We have major employees moving into Newcastle, global firms choosing Newcastle, and thousands of people now working in spaces that did not exist decades ago. That is why this moment matters. It's not a sign of weakness to recognise that a regeneration cycle is maturing. It is a sign of strength to plan for what comes next while the momentum is still with us. That is exactly what is already happening. Work is underway to produce a strategic regeneration framework for the Newcastle Gateshead Urban Core, which will support a new commercial pipeline of investment and identify the next generation of strategic employment sites. This will be aligned with an investment strategy and with our local plan, ensuring that growth is planned, deliverable and sustainable. We already have major sites in development and preparations, including nationally significant locations that will shape the next phase of growth. We are also working through the Newcastle Gateshead Mayoral Development Zone to unlock multi-site opportunities and align investment across our urban core. This is not a pause in ambition, it is the next chapter. The Labour Group amendment reflects that reality. It recognises success. It acknowledges the need to plan ahead and it supports the strategic work already underway to secure the future of our commercial development pipeline. It also reinforces the importance of working with our partners across the region, including the North East Combined Authority, to unlock infrastructure funding, de-risk development and keep Newcastle at the forefront of economic growth. Tonight is not about looking back, it's about building on where we have achieved and making sure the next wave of regeneration is even stronger than the last. I'm pleased to second this amendment and I urge colleagues to support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I now call on Councillor Stone to speak, to be followed by Councillor Herridge.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm pleased to speak in this debate on the importance of the city's commercial development pipeline. I've had some involvement in the past and I support the underlying points the original motion makes. Councillor Ferguson notes the scale of development in major cities, particularly Manchester, which can be partly attributed to a greater catchment area, but also to some far-sighted and enlightened leadership, which is civic leadership, which has helped drive forward development over the past 2 decades. I'm thinking particularly of the late Chief Executive of Manchester. In this part of the world, I may not win any friends by saying it, but I note that Sunderland is getting on with it and developing a lot faster than Newcastle has in recent years. There has been some ambition and some drive there, and I think we might learn some lessons from their experience. But all of that is not to say that Newcastle is standing still. I know that it takes at least a decade, if not 2 decades, to go from concept stage to successful realisation. We're seeing that in the East Pilgrim Street area, and I commend the progress it is making. We all hope to see further progress at the rebranded Founders Place. In time, we hope further opportunities around the Fourth Yards project, which at present is housing-led rather than economic opportunity-led. And I would add that the Fourth Yard site is one part of what I knew and what's the Discovery Quarter when I was cabinet member for Regeneration. There is more to be done than just Fourth Yards. The premise of the motion is that work is needed to identify a vision and a pipeline for the next phase of development of the urban core and the capacity, including the officer and resource and capacity, to develop and implement a delivery plan for this. Now, I'm particularly struck by the recent announcement of a mayoral development zone for cross-Tyne key sites. There is some speculation that that initiative has been announced to take it out of the hands of one of our neighbours because of the slow progress that has been made on their big project. I don't know if that's true or not, but certainly I would hope to see some progress and some detail, and look forward to scrutinising what that detail is on the mayoral development zone, because it needs to have an officer team, it needs to have a vision, it needs to have plans for how it's going to realise and commercially develop those sites, and it needs to go beyond more than just photo opportunities and lip service. There is a further critical challenge for the city and the region. The Mayor has responsibility for the region's economic strategy. There is a symbiotic relationship between economic and employment growth and demand and for development of employment and commercial premises. If the mayoral development zone is to thrive, it will need to be driven by economic growth, by private sector employment growth. Of course, public sector employment is crucial and essential to a city like ours, but real growth and prosperity flows from a successful private sector with thriving local businesses. More can be done to drive this, and we shall hold the Mayor accountable for delivering it. And I would come back briefly on one point the leader has made. Councillor Cookson would, I'm sure, make this point if he was able to do so. I will declare an interest in that. I work for Northern University. I have a tangential involvement at an administrative level on the Space Centre project. Councillor Cookson is far more closely involved than I am. But really, I challenge the leader not to take credit for other people's work and other people's achievements. The council has not been actively involved in that project. It has been Northern University has done that, and I really think it is regrettable that you try to claim it as your achievement, because it's not. It's the work of other people, so please don't take the credit for it.
Thank you very much. Can Councillor Ashby stand ready? Councillor, yes.
Lord Mayor, can I request a suspension of the guillotine for just 30 minutes to get through the important items left on the agenda, please?
Right. Well, obviously, we could. Do you have a seconder? Okay. Should warn council that if this passes, I'll ask the people on the top table if they need a comfort break, and it's not easy for me or the sheriff to do that. So that'll probably take about 10 minutes of this extra time. So just bear that in mind when you come to vote on suspending the guillotine.
Okay.
Right, so it's not agreed, I take it. We need to go to a vote, yes? Right, okay. Has everybody who can vote electronically done that? Yes? Okay, we'll now move to the ones who weren't able to vote electronically. If you're in favour of suspending the guillotine, please show. Okay, thank you. If you're against suspending the guillotine, please show. Yes? Well, we were about, I think, to vote on the thing. So if we waited, another 5 minutes, we could have, Councillor Cookson would probably be back in the chamber. Yeah. Well, he's not in the chamber. Right. Okay. You got them? Yes. Is anybody abstaining? Thank you, gentlemen. Is anybody abstaining? No. Okay. So that's 28 for and 27 against with no abstentions. You can't come in yet, Mike. Sorry. Right. Where are we? Oh, Councillor Herridge.
Yes, thank you, Lord Mayor. And I just wanted to declare an interest at the start of this because I do work for the team that I'm going to be talking about, but it is on my register of interests. So I just wanted to speak in support of the motion, and particularly around one of the things that was mentioned in the amendment, which was the expansion of the Newcastle Hospitals Trust and the work that the council is doing in that. Now, so I work for one of the cancer research teams in the Freeman, and we will hopefully soon be moving into the new to be built Sir Bobby Robson Institute that's going to be out the back of the Freeman. It's going to be a purpose-built 3-level cancer research institute for all cancer research in Newcastle, and we're very much looking forward to being able to carry out work in that. Whilst it was largely funded by charitable funds, the council, it would not have been possible without the council as the planning authority who granted the planning permission to build that. And running these clinical trials brings in a lot of money to the trust. It's one of the only teams in the trust that is actually technically for profit, but obviously the profit goes back into the trust. It's not like we don't make money on it. And so when we have clinical trials that are run by commercial sponsors such as the big drug companies, they give us essentially more money than it costs us to carry out the trial under the agreement that they have access to the patients, and so we get a benefit that we have capacity building money and money that can be put back into the trust. So that building alone is going to bring in millions of pounds of extra funding into the NHS in our city, and I think it was important to stress that even though the council isn't directly involved, it wouldn't be possible without the council.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ashby.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Colleagues may not recall that I'm a council-nominated director of the board of the city's joint venture developer Tynex, and I look forward to Labour colleagues joining the next board meeting. And I'd like to place on record my appreciation of the role of the retired Councillor Frew, particularly for his past chairmanship. In recent years, Tynex has developed affordable houses on difficult land, such as Loadman Street. The council secured grants for land reclamation as part of its role. These homes are now being occupied. The new commercial office development at Airview Park, just south of the airport, was helped by regional development money. The park includes shared facilities such as those offered by Asian Business Connections at its International Space Station, which is about 3 minutes' walk from the Callerton Metro Station, and there is net biodiversity gain as a consequence. Our partner company takes a smaller profit margin than commercial developers expect, and surplus profit is distributed to charities in the wards where development takes place. To ensure a continuation of its success, it requires a pipeline of sites and looks to the council to suggest what is needed. So I urge council officers to redouble their efforts to identify sites, especially when regeneration is needed, to sustain this advantage for the city, its people and businesses. And I support the motion.
Thank you very much. Councillor Mark Mitchell, you reserve the right to speak.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll try and keep this brief. Just to talk about some of the practicalities. As we approach 2030, lots of office-based businesses are looking about how to achieve net zero. If you rent an office, you can't really decarbonise one floor of that office from a landlord. So the net impact of this is a lot of businesses are looking to move to Grade A offices that are already net zero. We then, of course, all know about the changes in work patterns due to COVID and flexible working. We've had success at Helix, but that's built out, and at HMRC Pilgrim Place, but they are pre-let. Even Banks House is now fully let. So there's only really Founders Place that's really going to be available if we don't commit to more Grade A office space soon. There's a call for sites, but as we all know, it will take a lot of time and effort for those to come to fruition. By the time you do the land deal, the pre-application, planning, etc., frankly, even if we started today, most of these properties would not be built until after 2030. And that brings me to the Labour amendment. Only having been a councillor for 2 years, sitting in this chamber, whenever the Labour administration stands up and starts talking about 2012, I'm we are now in 2025, 13 years after that. 2026. I apologise. 2026. Labour is talking about developing a strategy now. Where was that strategy 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago? I'm sorry, this amendment is nothing more than Labour trying to make an excuse. Frankly, if they had been doing their job properly, we and the Greens would not be bringing this motion and this amendment today because we would already be on this path. So don't vote for the Labour apology and the Labour excuses. Instead, back our motion and the Green amendment so we can send the message to Newcastle that we need to get building again now and that we're already behind the 8 ball, and let's get on with it.
Thank you very much. Can I now call on Councillor Ferguson to reply? Oh, okay, thank you very much. We now move on to the vote. The First Amendment, is it agreed? What? The First Amendment by Councillor Hartley, is that agreed? Agreed? Yes? Okay, great. Is the Second Amendment agreed? No, all right. Okay, we need a vote. Sorry? This is, you're voting on the Second Amendment, which was proposed by Councillor Kilgard. In the year 25. Okay, so everybody who can vote electronically done that. Those who weren't able to vote electronically, who are in favour of the amendment, please show. Oh. Thank you very much. You got that, yeah? Those against, please show. Is anybody abstaining? Dorian, are you abstaining? No. Right, okay. Anyone abstaining? No. Okay, the result of the vote was 28 for, 28 against. Therefore, the amendment is lost. So now we vote on the motion as amended by the First Amendment. Is it agreed? No? Okay. Well, we need another vote then. Right, is everybody who can vote electronically voted? Okay, good. Right. If you're in favour of the motion and couldn't vote electronically, please show your hands. Okay. If you're against the motion, if you're abstaining, in that case it is 26 for with nobody against and 28 abstentions, so that is carried. Thank you. We now move on to item 15, notice of motion ending the two-tier maintenance of Newcastle's play areas. I call on Councillor Ferguson to move this motion, to be seconded by Councillor Coles. Oh, and somebody did get a mic, thank you.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll make this as quick as I possibly can. I'm proposing this motion because of how important our parks are to our residents. But surely it's not right that we would be content to be a city where the quality of your child's play area, your local green space, would be dependent entirely on which administrative tier it falls into. In March 2025, the management of 33 major parks and 38 play spaces formally returned to this council following the closure of Urban Green Newcastle. This was not a strategic choice, but a necessity prompted by a significant financial shortfall that forced the council to commit at least £1.5 million per annum just to keep the site standing. But while these 33 parks came home, plenty of other parks and green spaces like Iris Brickfield, Summerhill Park and Fen and Pocket Park remained under direct council management all along. The result is that we have been left with a fragmented two-tier system. On the one hand, we have former Urban Green Newcastle sites with no specific identified revenue streams for ongoing repairs. And on the other, we have our long retained neighbourhood parks struggling with a budget that isn't even sufficient for their basic needs. Maintaining two separate budget pots for these areas further entrenches this divide. It is a bureaucratic wall that separates green spaces in a way that our residents, who use them every single day, wouldn't understand from their lived experience. I understand what Labour will say today. They are seeking to amend the motion, claiming that the 2026-27 budget process is the opportunity to align resources. I respect what they are trying to do, but I struggle to agree with it. Lord Mayor, the 2026-27 budget proposals on this front are currently unacceptably vague. If If the administration truly had their priorities straight, they would have used this moment to merge the two service functions into one. Instead, they have chosen to keep them split, with two separate budgets and no clear plan to bridge the gap. To suggest that a process will eventually fix this is cold comfort to parents and families looking at broken equipment in their neighbourhood park. Every resident, regardless of their ward, deserves access to safe, high-quality green space. We need an equalised, adequate maintenance budget for every site, drawn up to the level needed, not down to the minimum possible. We need a single Newcastle Green Spaces maintenance standard, and we must embrace transparency through the publication of an annual Parks Condition Report for every ward so residents can see exactly where their money is being spent. It is time to end the division, regularise the funding and ensure that everyone has access to a top-tier park. I urge Council to support the motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Coles, the second.
I'll be parochial for a minute, if you don't mind. I'm unbelievably lucky to live near Jesmond Dean, which I think is probably one of the best urban parks in the country. Now, imagine my surprise several months after reporting a problem with one of the bridges in the Dean that it was shut with no notice after the closure of Urban Green last summer. I have tried to query what is going on with that bridge, and there is no clear plan. On the other side of Jesmond, we've got the play area in Exhibition Park, which has also been shut and unusable for months. Now, this is just a couple of examples in one part of the city, but it's reflective of a wider issue where we were left with degraded green spaces and degraded play areas after the experiment, I'll call it that, of Urban Green. So why don't we, as Colin said, go back, look at the detail, stop the two-tier system, get to proper, transparent reviews of each green space in the city. Let's be properly localised, use local knowledge to its fullest extent, and get the review done as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have an amendment to be proposed by Councillor Hay and seconded by Councillor Kilgour. Councillor Hay.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. At the outset of my remarks, I do want to make clear to the Chamber a number of Labour members have now left the meeting with permission because they have caring and health responsibilities, which mean they've had to go. They can't attend anymore. They have lost their right because of the decision to suspend a guillotine when members have left when they've voted for it. It's shameful. Play spaces really do matter. They matter to children growing up in Newcastle. They matter to families who use them. And they matter because they bring people together and make our neighbourhoods stronger. Over recent years and in face of austerity, this administration has continued to invest in play spaces because we believe they are essential, not optional. Last year, we committed £1.5 million to transform 11 play spaces across the city with a clear focus on inclusion so that no child is left out. That investment is about more than new equipment. It is about ensuring every child in Newcastle has a safe and exciting place to play close to home. It's about children playing side by side with their friends. It's about families spending time together, and it's about creating spaces that communities can be proud of. That programme was shaped by a full review of our play spaces conducted by external experts, Ethos, so that we could be honest about where provision was falling short and bold about where to invest. The outcome of that work is now moving forward at pace, and families will start to see the benefits this year. That £1.5 million investment builds on years of work since 2019 to repair, refresh and improve play spaces, even while council budgets have been under huge pressure. We have made a consistent choice to keep investing in children and families. We are also honest about the challenges. Our playground estate is ageing. Some sites came back into council management from Urban Green in a poorer condition than others. There is more to do, and there will always be more to do. And that is why this debate about how we manage and fund place-based improvements matters. But let me be crystal clear. There is no two-tier system in the management of our place spaces. Place spaces are managed on a city-wide basis using professional judgment. Decisions are based on safety, condition, inspection, evidence, including ROSPA reports, and what other provision exists nearby. We do not allocate fixed budgets to individual sites or wards because that flexibility allows us to invest more where the need is greatest. That approach is not about treating areas differently, it's about treating children fairly. We can all support the aim of a consistent approach across the city, but consistency does not mean identical spending regardless of condition. It means clear standards, transparency, and the ability to respond to what is happening on the ground. The Labour Group amendment reflects that balanced approach. It recognises the progress already being made. It supports a city-wide standard, and it acknowledges the need for more sustainable funding. This administration has chosen to invest in play spaces so children of all abilities can grow up playing together without barriers and without being left behind. Our amendment helps us to continue it in a practical and constructive way, and I urge colleagues to support it. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hay. Before I call Councillor Kilgour, can I just say, Councillor Hay, I do agree with you about the guillotine. And I think obviously there are always emergencies that happen and people have to leave the chamber. But if you know you're not going to stay to the close of business, I don't think you have a moral right to vote to get rid of the guillotine if you're not going to stay here as well. And it's one of the reasons I won't be using a casting vote on guillotine issues in future. Although we only have one more meeting, so. Right. Councillor Kilgour, you second? You're not reserving the right? Nope. Okay. Thank you very much. Right, where are we? Could I call on Councillor Lovett, please, and can Councillor Higgins please stand ready?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Councillors may not be aware, but come May 26, Fordham and West Gosforth's only children's play park in Prince's Meadow moves into Gosforth Ward. Fordham and West Gosforth will be left with nothing but a weed and dog poo-filled park, which Labour continues to choose to forget about. To add to this, our local football team has to play their home games away at Paddy Freeman's after their changing rooms were condemned at Cox Lodge because Labour didn't have a plan in place to replace it at end of life. Parks are not just patches of green in our city, they are vital spaces where young children grow, learn and thrive, developing essential physical, social and emotional skills that shape their futures. They are classrooms without walls where curiosity is sparked and knowledge is gained through exploration, gyms without membership, where movement is natural and joyful, and meeting places without barriers, where friendship blossoms and communities come together in shared experiences that strengthen bonds across the generations. A park is not a luxury for our children, it's a necessity, and every child deserves a place to laugh, to run and dream, including Fordham, not just for the few, and not, in our case, for nobody. I support the motion. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. Can Councillor Mark Mitchell stand ready? Councillor Higgins, you're waving your right. Okay, thank you. Councillor Mark Mitchell.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. At the risk of being slightly controversial, can I point out the Labour group that if their whip had actually been prepared to negotiate with other people in the whip's meeting, then there could have been an agreement on the guillotine. So shouting at people is not necessarily the best way of dealing with it.
Can you get on with your speech, please?
Yes.
Okay, Councillor Powers, please. Thank you.
I'll make 3 quick points this evening. First of all, I would like to acknowledge and thank very much the Cabinet Member for the funds that have been found, the Section 106 funds that have been found for Slatyford Dean. That is appreciated, and I'm sure all the residents will be very happy that that will go ahead. But it does raise one of the points that I think is important in this, that this was a case of funds being found from Section 106, which is certainly one of the pots we can use, but there is a certain lack of transparency about what funds are available under 106, when they can be spent, and how they can be spent on play areas. We have mentioned a lot about children here, but there's a group of people who also rely on play areas and are often forgotten, and that is the particular group of carers in this city, grandparents. And those are often the people that we end up talking to in parks during the day when they are the only people that parents can afford to actually look after their children. They often don't have cars, and they're one of the groups who are most reliant on play areas. So it is hugely important that we have a proper system that deals with this. Now, I'm sometimes told off about scrutiny looking at things. Scrutiny has looked at this issue directly, and when we asked how much money was available for maintenance and repair of play areas, we were told it was £300,000. Sounds quite a bit, except that has to pay for staff costs, repairs and maintenance, and ends up being about £5,000 per play area. That's about enough to maintain areas, but it is simply not enough money to pay for any kind of significant repairs when they are needed. The final point I want to make is what is in the Labour amendment about the budget, and them saying this should have been dealt with in the budget proposals. Well, the fact is, it was Labour's consultation on the budget. Other parties cannot get input into the consultation process, and the fact is, you produced no proposals for the city to look at on increasing spending on play areas or decreasing spending on play areas or on anything else. So frankly, the consultation was completely useless for residents because it didn't talk about increasing or decreasing spending. So for that reason alone, please reject the amendment and support the motion.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ferguson, you have the right to reply.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think it's the responsibility of the original proposer of the original motion to summate the debate. And on that basis, I wasn't intending to speak, but I must address what has been said about the suspension of the guillotine. I have sat and stood and spoken and listened in this council chamber whenever my daughter was less than 2 weeks old in order to represent my residents and do my duty as a councillor in this chamber. I have the utmost understanding and respect.
Okay, can we have silence, please? Can you, Councillor Ferguson, I think you've made your point.
No, Lord Mayor, I've got 3 minutes, I believe. I have the utmost understanding and respect for the caring and health responsibilities of every member in this chamber. But Labour, it cannot come as a surprise to you that members on this side of the chamber feel for years now that we have not been able to get through sufficient volume of business for all of the views in this chamber to be represented. And until you are willing to engage with us in a meaningful conversation in whichever forum we choose, confidential or otherwise, then this is the only recourse we are left with. And so this is the position we find ourselves in. Come and have a conversation with us. That's fine. I'm very happy to talk.
Right. Councillor Ferguson.
And lastly, Lord Mayor, Lord Mayor.
Are you going to speak to the motion?
I will. Lastly, Lord Mayor, I will take lessons from the party opposite on the disclosure of the discussions in confidential meetings whenever they stop throwing my words in those contexts back at me.
Okay. Right. Is the amendment agreed? No. Right, okay. Can we go to the vote then, please? Has everybody... Oh, still going, still going. Okay, we'll close electronic vote. Those of you who couldn't vote electronically and are in favour of the amendment, can you please show? Thank you, gentlemen. Those of you who were against the amendment and weren't able to vote electronically, please show. Thank you both. Anyone who wishes to abstain, please show. Thank you. So that's 24 in favour, 28 against. So the amendment is lost. So now on the motion, is the motion agreed? Yes, okay. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 16. Notice of motion, fair council tax collection. I'll call on Councillor Chisholm to move this motion, to be seconded by Councillor Peters. Councillor Chisholm.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So the accumulated council tax debt in this country is, that's England and Wales, is £6 billion. And the last time the government published figures on how many people were taken to court for bailiff action, it was almost £3 million, 3 million people a year. If you think about the consequences for those individuals of having a bailiff set on them as a local authority, there's a very serious issue where some of the poorer and perhaps most stressed members of our communities are having a very difficult adversarial relationship with their local authority, often dealing with bailiffs who refuse to negotiate and demand court payment and use threats against them. So we all know as local councillors that we have a duty to collect council tax, and none of us really like council tax. The thing is that the money that we collect is really important for the service that we want to deliver in our city. And in 2017, actually, in Newcastle, we signed the Citizen-Devised Council Tax Collection Protocol. It's 7 years ago. There's quite a lot of information, and there's shall we say, some gaps in the way that is now being delivered. So this is a motion that is designed to get cross-party support to reset the way that we work with the debt-based sector and the way that we talk about council tax collection. We've had a lot of years of austerity, we've had a lot of staff losses in that time, and some of the improvements that we made, I think, have been a bit lost. So we all agree that we're forced to operate a taxation system we understand is unfair. We understand that it's a taxation system. Sorry, Lord Mayor, I'm struggling to read.
No, it's okay.
I solved my problem. So bear with me a bit. I'm determined to read it myself and not hand it over this time. So it's a taxation that exaggerates inequality and punches poorer people, and we have to run it, and we have choices about how we run it. So although the Green Party policy, which is that it should be abolished, I think we've heard across the chamber tonight that we agree with it. But we have to operate this system, and we have to deal with the wave of changes that are coming to council tax collections that are going to affect this issue. We need to do a bit of reset and a bit of thinking about how council tax works. So we do have a pretty good council tax support system in this city. That's the benefit system that helps people on low income. And we have a pretty high collection rate. So those two things are connected. If you ask people nicely, you're more likely to get the money, and if you work, and although the council did have a historically good relationship with the debt advice sector, there were quite a lot of reports really from the advice sector advisors that they've been struggling to get help for their clients from the council, and in particular to help to negotiate effectively to resolve the problems with their debts. So we have some good policies. Newcastle, unlike most councils, has a very positive approach to writing off unpayable debt. One of the only few councils in the north that does that. But in practice, Newcastle City Council has, over perhaps the past 3 or 4 years, become much more difficult to deal with for people working in the advice sector. And there have been some studies comparing councils across the northeast, and we've fallen behind. So that's what this motion is trying to address. So an example, I attended the Citizens Advice AGM yesterday, for example. They're very keen to have a constructive working relationship with the council, and they report that when the council passes debts to bailiffs, it's extremely difficult and often impossible to negotiate. The council refuses to negotiate and just leaves the debts in the hands of the private bailiffs. Even though there's a qualified debt advisor that's following national standards and approaching them. So what I'm looking for, I don't think this is policy driven. What I'm looking for is a bit of a reset. What this motion is proposing, a sustainable look at how the council works with advice organisations we work with and do a lot of work. Oh dear. I'm sorry about this, Lord Mayor. Maybe you can get away. Well, a couple of things. So I want to talk about imprisonment. So people are routinely with imprisonment in correspondence and in communication with bailiffs behind with their council tax. Even though the law about imprisonment have to be willfully not paying. So non-payment is not an imprisonment offence. The Welsh Government changed the law on that in 2019, and in fact, when they changed the law, their collection rate went up. I think that clearly demonstrates that.
Can you speak into the microphone, Alistair? Sorry. You're moving it away from your face.
Thank you. And I think that clearly demonstrates that punitive collection techniques are counterproductive. So that's why I think that there's no contradiction really between asking that the council resets its relationship with debt advice organisations and works closely with them, because supporting people in debt is better than threatening them. I was going to talk about reform and Durham and the way that they promised to support ordinary people, and in fact I just cast them into council tax debt, but I won't go on about that too much because I'm running out of time. So just one more kind of general point I'll make then. So after the banking crash, quite a lot of regulation about how debts are collected in this country were changed. Private debt collectors, banks, and then following that, even privatised companies, energy companies, have a much clearer framework, and frankly, they treat people in financial difficulty much better than councils. The local councils are the most aggressive, threatening debt collectors operating in this country. And that's not the fault of this administration or this council, because we're working in a terrible legal framework. But actually, there is quite a lot you can do through collaboration and through engagement with residents in financial difficulty. That's what this motion is.
Yeah. Can you sum up, please, Alistair?
Okay. So this is an attempt to be divisive, but it is an attempt to have a look. The government is changing council tax regulations in the in the short term. They're probably going to end in prison. They're going to change the dreadful regulation that if you miss one payment or one reminder, then a bail can be set on you and you can be taken to court. And that requires looking again at how we deal with collection, because the punitive legalistic framework is going to change. And in the past, Newcastle has been a pretty much leading authority working on financial inclusion, and we need to reset the way that our officers and our organisations, and in particular the bailiffs we employ, work. And this is an obligation to that. So
Okay, well,
thank you.
right, thank you. And Alistair, if there's anything else we can do as a council to help facilitate you being in the chamber, just let us know. Okay, thank you. Well, the guillotine has fallen. Under the rules of the guillotine, I can call one further speaker, who will obviously be the seconder of the motion, Councillor Peters. Okay, thank you very much. So we have an amendment, which can now only be formally proposed and seconded. So, where are we? Councillor Mitchell, do you want to move the amendment? Okay. Councillor Ferguson, seconded. Okay, thank you very much. So, is the amendment agreed? Agreed? Yeah. Okay. So, is the motion as amended agreed? Okay, thank you. So we now go through each item in turn, and I will ask people if they want them dealt with now, or if you want to hold it over till the next meeting. Item 17, improved bus services. Councillor Cookson. Take it, next one. Yeah, can do. Yeah. 18, safer phones for children. Councillor Taylor. You want to take it now? Okay, fine. We have a seconder. Councillor Austin, yeah. There's an amendment by Councillor Powers. Is anybody else going to propose it? Okay. So he's seconded by Councillor Mains. So, okay, thank you. Is the amendment agreed? Okay. Well, we need to move to a vote then. Okay, so we'll close the electronic vote there then. Right, if you didn't manage to vote electronically and you're in favour of the amendment, can you please show, please? Thank you. If you're against, can you please show? Okay, thank you. Any abstentions? Nope. That was 17 for, 24 against and 2 abstentions. So the motion, substantive motion, is that agreed? Agreed. Okay, thank you. Item 8, no, sorry, that was item 18. 19, freedom of expression and human rights. Take it now. Are you proposing it? Seconder? Thank you. Oh, no amendment to this one. Okay, great. Is that motion agreed? Agreed. Thank you. Now, the WASPI Justice and Compensation, I gather there's been a change to the proposer and seconder. So, Councillor Tracy Mitchell. Do you want it discussed this evening or held over? This evening? Okay. Seconded by Councillor Keynes. Thank you, Teresa. There is an amendment by Councillor Taylor. Moved. Yeah. It's been seconded by Councillor Burns. Is somebody else going to do that then? Thank you, Councillor Austin. So we'll move to the amendment. Is the amendment agreed? Agreed, yes? Okay. So is the motion as amended agreed? Okay, thank you very much. So that's the close of the meeting. The next meeting of Council will be on Wednesday the 4th of March at 6 p.m, at which the guillotine will again fall at 9 p.m. After that, the annual meeting of Council will take place on Wednesday the 27th of May at 2 p.m. Thank you very much, Council.